Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Flame, Ash, Time in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 1, Prologue, Fractured Fabric. Epimenides. Thales. Nemesis. Crest of Flames. Goddess. Partaking in divine blood. Agartha. Lifeless machinery. Time bleeding, soaking into the fabric of existence. A fluid draining out, flowing and shifting in a natural direction, yet unpredictably diverted with artificial interference. A ripple sent, creating new realities. Time cracking, breaking the boundaries of experience. A wall shattering before the eyes of a select few. Different images cascade, rewind, reweave. The way things should be. A woman in red and gold. Goddess by her side. A burning city with the Immaculate One. Abdicated throne. Daughter, Adelaide. The way things could be. A woman in red and silver. Unwitting Agartha and vessel by her side, though more distant. Demon comes later. War unfinished. Another break in time. Nemesis wins. Ceros slain in Tailtean plains. A world of technology. Metal and concrete spires ruled by shadows by Thales. Nemesis wields the throne. 1,000 years of uncompromised technological evolution. Time ever at the hands of the goddess. Vessel wakes. Divine pulse. 2 sets of memories. Questions. Find answers. Power of the divine not enough to win. Grip of shadows too interwoven into daily living. Find the flames of revolution. In Bear Palace is nothing like it had been in the past. The old structure had long since been torn down in the wake of Nemesis' new world. His fortress is, understandably, a massive metallic structure reinforced with the most advanced defenses which had undergone constant revisions over the last millennium. The megastructure was built to survive an onslaught from the most advanced weaponry and the largest armies. Ironically enough, the Ashen Demon would have had a harder time breaking in if she did attempt to lead in an army. Instead, she operates in her old way, an ex-mercenary tearing through enemy forces. Slipping into the palace was easy enough with her custom assets. Her armor is a blend of flexible plated alloys, voice-distorting mask and helm, and a hooded tri-weave cape. The armor sports mild nanotech, which redirects the energy of most impacts. The demon refused to stop the enhancements there, charming the armor set with illegal magics made to boost its durability and energy redirective properties. Though tonight, her custom-made personal cloaking unit did most of the heavy lifting. Normally, such technology only tricks the naked eye. However, the demon finally managed to track down and acquire a more advanced, experimental device kept under tight lock and key in an Agarthan facility prior to this mission. She made sure to burn the research and destroy the facility once she accomplished her mission. Wouldn't want her true enemies to have yet another advantage. Agartha, she thinks, an ancient civilization which holds the whole world in its hands. Yet no one knows of its existence. Even now, they're just force-fed propaganda of the King of Liberation's total authority. As if that barbarian could actually rule anything effectively, especially with such advanced technology at play. Light subtly bends around her invisible figure as she slips through doorways, air shafts, and windows. Unfortunately, the deeper into the facility she goes, the tighter its security becomes. She finds herself in front of a massive set of blast doors. No panels to disrupt. No ducts to sneak through. This kind of door requires multiple sets of passcodes to open. And anyone with those codes is most certainly on the other side, especially at this time of night. I guess my opportunities for perfect stealth have run out. The Ashen Demon places both of her hands on the airtight seam of the entrance. Pressing inward, her fingers crinkle the durasteel. With each hand, she pushes outward, forcing the doors apart. 3-foot-thick metal grinds along the floor, creating a person-sized entrance for the merc. One advantage to having lived a double past is the amalgamation of her powers. Being a veritable demigod was one thing, but thanks to whatever changed the past, she's now a demigod with genetic modifications and 2 lifetimes of training and experience. Though she doesn't know why she recalls her old past, or has her old powers, she's sure it's linked to the divine pulse. Curiously enough, the pulse is the one power she hasn't managed to retain in this new world. Whatever screwed up the timeline made damn sure I wouldn't be able to make any more historical changes. Predictably, the damage she caused trips a sensor as alarms scream throughout the facility. She won't have much time until she's swarmed, so she sprints down the metallic hallway. This world will see enough bloodshed as it is, and she doesn't want to add any more with unnecessary confrontations. Each set of blast doors peels just as easily as the last as she makes her way to the library. Thankfully, only small squads of Imperial enforcers manage to scramble themselves in the way of her objective. These enforcers wear predictable riot control gear, black, padded body armor with several pouches, full face masks, dark helmets, and heavy weapons. The insignia of the Empire, the crest of flames, is patched into their shoulders. Without a proper visual on the demon, she shoves past them, leaving them confused and terrified. For her, it's only a short sprint until she reaches the enforced entrance to Inver Palace's data room. The palace's library, the demon quickly discovered, has a massive reputation in Fodlan's underworld as a nexus for all sorts of unsavory, unimaginable secrets. Many speculate the nature of what Inver's data servers hide: WMD schematics, human experimentation, info on historical revisions, persons of interest. The list is endless. And all of it is likely to be true. However, the demon only invades the library for one purpose. Damn it, Byleth curses internally. The public library near her apartment wasn't giving her any better information than a quick search on the internet. All she finds are educational documents and articles on a bloodbath. Every source is just as vague as the last: Hresvelg family executed for treason. Each entry reads. The information never gives specifics beyond claims that the governor of the Adrestian territory planned revolt, and that his family was executed, leaving no survivors. Underworld sources were slightly more specific, asserting that it was actually a scheme by the Aegir family to rise to prominence by framing Governor Ionius IX in a coordinated scheme with imperial officials. The insurrection of the Seven, they called it. Some things don't appear to change across histories, Byleth mentally notes. Her sources confirmed that only one place would have the full truth: Inver Palace Library. The Ashen Demon crumples the door to the library and races to the nearest server. She plugs in a small drive pulled from her modest utility belt. The drive tears through firewalls, copying and downloading data quickly enough, but that doesn't stop the jitters she feels as she frantically searches for documents relating to the Hresvelgs. A report on the members of the family pops up. As she guessed, each member is classified as deceased, except for one. Edelgard von Hresvelg, missing, presumed deceased. The rabbit hole leads her to notes and security footage of experiments filed under the project codename Burn the Gods. She can guess well enough what that entails, so she doesn't bother watching the footage. Still, it's enough to reassure her of her instinct: Edelgard is alive and out there somewhere. The drive bleeps, letting the demon know the copy is finished. She removes the device and turns to leave. Only she's interrupted by a sudden jolt of energies, a mix of an EMP and some form of dark magic. Though the suit deflects the damage, thankfully also shielding the drive in her utility belt, the burst is enough to short out her cloaking unit. She stumbles back as the bending light morphs into her full form. She wears nimble, plated body armor with a smooth, full-faced helmet. Her hood weaves into the shoulder plating, extending back out into her heavy cape. The only openings on her suit are for her eyes and nostrils. Everything is ash-colored, naturally. There's the little rat in our system, a voice booms out from the second story of the library. The demon looks up to see a team of what she can only describe as tech-adorned mages dressed in all black. She hadn't expected Nemesis to be in Adrestia this month, let alone standing proudly in the center of the squad above her, decked out in familiar leathery brown armor. Though there are some metal plates and flickering lights woven into his outfit. She wonders if the bits of tech are just for show or are somehow related to his unholy lifespan. His eyes glare with a wrathful black and red menace, indicating that whatever humanity he had once was long gone. Your cloaking was suspiciously advanced, he continues. Luckily, my court mages were able to trace you by your magic signature. Tell me, how did you come by the ancient arts? Why break into our servers? Do you work with anyone? Answer quickly, and I give my word that your death will be relatively quick and painless. We won't even torture you for information. The monster grimaces before her as she stands in silence. After a moment, she responds. Do you believe in hell? Her distorted voice rings out through the library, deep, pseudo-robotic, and slightly garbled, as though spoken through an old-fashioned communicator. Ha, he bellows. You're trying to intimidate me? Well, at least you'll amuse me before I mangle your corpse. The Ashen Demon doesn't give him time for further boasting as she quickly draws her custom weapon from her belt, Lady at Midnight. It's a jet black short sword with one straight edge, one curved. The curved end is lined with an ethereal blue lavender light, quite unlike the orange glows associated with other vibro weapons. She flicks the blade in the direction of the second-floor balcony as it extends with a whip-like cord, much like her old creator sword, severing through the mages and cleaving the structure. Nemesis jumps to avoid the blade, landing on the damaged balcony, which collapses and sends him careening to the floor. He stands up, brushing the debris off him with a chuckle. It seems you've modeled your weapon after mine. How flattering. But nothing matches the power of the original. The hulking man draws this world's creator sword dramatically, no doubt intended to frighten the demon. He whips the sword in her direction, though she swiftly dodges his blows. She reads his moves easily as, unbeknownst to him, she's already had this fight in the old world. The demon quickly closes the distance, slashing towards Nemesis and putting him on the back foot as he shifts to a more serious attitude. He grins. I suppose I shouldn't have underestimated you, seeing as how you were able to invade my palace so easily. I won't make the same mistake twice. Her robotic, monotone voice responds, you won't be making any more mistakes at all. She swings her blade at him, which he easily catches on the jagged ends of his sword. Before he lets out another condescending quip, the demon kicks his oversized chest. Normally, he'd expect an opponent so much smaller than him to leave little physical damage with their melee blows. This time, the wind leaves his lungs as he flies through 3 data shelves. Sparks fly as he pulls himself back to his feet. HW whips the creator sword to the demon, who merely raises her left arm. The blade catches around her forearm, searing through her armor and burning her skin. The jagged end of the blade's separated sections dig into her flesh. Still, the damage is mostly surface level and will heal in only a day or two. She takes some satisfaction in the way Nemesis' face falls in what must have been his first time feeling terror in 1,000 years. She drops the sword in her right hand and reaches up, grabbing the extended creator sword. The magic energy of the blade burns through the glove on her gauntlet, superficially marring her skin. Forcing herself through the pain, she pulls on the sword. Then she reaches with her left hand, grabbing the magic cord. Nemesis attempts to retract the blade, fiercely yanking on his end. The Ashen Demon simply continues to pull on the blade, drawing the false king towards her as his boots scrap against the floor. God Emperor is what they call you, she taunts. But you are a pretender. Let me show you what a real god can do. Nemesis frantically drops the hilt of the divine blade and attempts to flee. The demon drops the rest of the sword and jumps at him, clearing a 16-foot distance and pinning him against the wall. She throws her fist into his nose, shattering it and knocking out his front teeth. The man retaliates by punching her helmet, yet for all his ferocious strength, he only manages to break 3 of his fingers on contact. The demon kicks his shin, shattering the bone with a crunchy squelch. Annoying liar, she huffs, throwing him backwards. Nemesis lands by his creator sword, shakily grabbing it in a final bid to defend himself. I suppose this saves me the trouble of having to end you later, the demon speaks. Go ahead. Kill me, he chortles. This all goes far deeper than me. You won't change a damn thing. You speak of your Agartha and allies, she says. He smirks, so you know about them. It doesn't matter if you kill me. It doesn't even matter if you kill them. We created an empire that spans the globe. Our roots go far deeper than some heads of state. And even if you wipe us all out, then what? Billions of people depend on the order we bring. Or perhaps collapsing society in a mass power vacuum is your plan. Shit. He's right. If she kills him, she'll only succeed in destabilizing the whole damn planet. This was what Edelgard was for. That's all the more reason why I need to find her. Seeing her hesitation, Nemesis laughs. Ignorant fool, he mocks. She ignores his jab and calmly collects her weapon off the ground. I'll have to rethink this whole damn thing. Well, until I find Edelgard, I'll at least have plenty of time to study everything on this drive. Maybe it'll hold clues to what exactly happened to cause the change in this world's history. She walks out of the library, leaving Nemesis in a humiliated heap. The monster grits his teeth to the sound of the Ashen Demon clashing through his enforcers as medics and troops flood into the room to tend to him. Chapter 2, Striking While the Iron's Hot. 5 years later. Edelgard swears under her breath at the situation. If only that damn Claude boy hadn't run off along with Dimitri. It was simple. Costas and his idiot bandits were supposed to get themselves killed fighting Jurica and the Knights of Syros. She had only told them, kill the nobles and nothing else, without giving them the knowledge that the knights would be there. They had no resources to win this fight or seriously hurt anyone. And that coward professor, Reuben von something, had already fled, guaranteeing that Jurica would be made a professor in his stead. With him properly positioned, she could further investigate the church, and maybe even rescue Monica. If she managed to work that miracle, she could expose those who slither in the dark in one fell swoop. But then Claude ran off with Dimitri, with the bandits in pursuit of the easier target. She's tempted to leave them lost in the woods with Costas chasing after them. After all, that's 2 potential heads of state removed as obstacles if the bandits kill them. But she can't allow that. She isn't even willing to kill Ria unless absolutely necessary, let alone these 2 youths. Everyone deserves a chance to surrender peacefully to her ambitious future, even if they do annoy her. Besides, their deaths would only get the school year cancelled, ensuring that she'd fail to either expose the Slitherers or slowly position the Imperial Army for invasion while she investigates the Church as the Flame Emperor. She certainly does not wish to fight the Slitherers and the Church at the same time if she can help it. And so, Edelgard chases after them, in spite of the danger to herself. She catches up to them in a huff. Claude. Dimitri. Would you 2 stop following me? Claude yells. We cannot simply leave you to your own devices, Dimitri chides. You could be hurt. Or worse. Claude shakes his head, so touching. Knock it off. Edelgard interrupts. If either of you want to get out of this alive, follow me. Oh? I don't suppose you have some magical solution to our predicament, Claude says. No, but Remire village is close. Supposedly, a renowned band of mercenaries is staying there. We can hire their swords if you let me lead the way. Pie that, an eager voice cracks. The Flame Emperor snaps out of her thoughts, refocusing on the locked door before her. She'd prefer to break the door down, but stealth is the only way they're guaranteed to eliminate their target before they quite literally smash the data. Repeat, she commands, shoving the strange vision out of her mind. These bizarre false flashbacks have been occurring more frequently in the last few months, corresponding to when she started putting her team together. Each one seems so vividly real, and yet, it's all the stuff of dreams and fairy tales. Magic. Dragons. The vague figure of a mysterious beauty she can't quite place. Casper's voice cuts back in over the communicator in her helmet. I said, my team is on standby at the power generator. Ready to wreck it on your orders. Edelgard's synthesized voice responds, good work, ugh, Hammer. She shouldn't have let them pick their own codenames. Bear, what's your status? Ready to cut power to the backup generator on your mark, Bernadetta squeaks out as confidently as possible. Excellent, the Flame Emperor says. She turns to her right, nodding at the assassin to her side. Decked out in a dark purple bodysuit with a fuchsia hollow mask, Petra returns her nod and prepares her universal skeleton key for the door's locking mechanism. The Brigid princess is royalty in name only. Her grandfather, the current king, is nothing more than a broken puppet ruler answering to the God Emperor. Her father had once funded a radical group of rebels that attempted to bomb in Bear Palace 3 years ago. The public execution of his entire political wing demonstrated just how well that strategy worked. Now, the assassin pours all her ambition and rage into her missions for Edelgard under the promise of attaining vengeance one day. The only thing they can't agree on is who deserves to deal the killing blow to Nemesis more. Edelgard begins, Blade and I are ready. Cut power in 5, 4, 3, 2. Her hands become clammy under her heavy gauntlets, her heart pounds in her thickly armored breast. 1. Mark. She hears the sound of a machinery being crudely broken over the communicator as power cuts out in the building. Red emergency lights flicker on, only to flicker off a second later. Petra's key automatically fiddles with the door's lock in mechanical ways Edelgard will never fully understand. With a quick click, the door slider pops unlocked as Petra eases it open. "We are in," the assassin enunciates, her voice slightly garbled by her hollow mask. These masks are lighter than physical helmets, but the drawback is that their voice synthesizers are less drastic and more easily recognized in person. Still, they do their job when it comes to disrupting proper voice recognition on recordings. The pair slips into an office. Or what passes for an office. This imperial factory lays on the very borders of Adrestia, near the heart of Fodlan, having been converted into a makeshift base for a band of low-level mercs hired by Governor Agir. Honestly, Edelgard isn't even sure she'd call them mercenaries. She's heard this band's reputation: they're thieves and killers, plain and simple. The back alley blades are known to take easy jobs, often leaving behind piles of corpses and little else. No doubt the governor hired them to guard this fringe facility because they were cheap and never asked questions. Edelgard had no remorse, knowing that they were going to kill anyone in their way. These were evil people, and she needn't bother keeping them alive for questioning, as they'd know next to nothing. She just needed the main terminal of the facility they were hired to protect. Petra quietly zips around, slicing through the mercs in the room as the perfect image, or lack thereof, of stealth. Edelgard, on the other hand, stomps through the room in her heavy armor. She doubts most anyone else would be able to wear it. She certainly wouldn't, given her size, if not for her modified strength. The mercenaries quickly realize that they're being attacked as Petra disappears into the shadows. Their lights fall squarely on Edelgard in her gaudy armor. They draw their weapons, opening fire on the Flame Emperor without so much as a warning. Their rounds only leave superficial dents as the crimson and silver wall of wrath makes her way towards them. Drawing her vibro axe, Edelgard swings down on one unfortunate merc trying to protect himself with an energy shield. Her strength is incredible enough as is, but the artificial muscles of the suit bolster her physical output. It also grants the additional advantage of giving her a more masculine figure, further protecting her true identity. The force of her strike almost instantly burns out the shield, crushing the soul underneath it. She tears the axe out of his crumpled body, letting the blood rapidly seep into the carpet. Two mercs run to the door behind them, desperately trying to break open the reinforced lock. While they fiddle, the remaining three mercs charge at the Flame Emperor with their vibro weapons drawn. Her suit can handle light rounds, but heated vibro blades were another matter. She draws her own energy shield, swinging it forward to both deflect the oncoming sword and knock its wielder off balance. As he falls, she swings her axe towards the other two attackers. One dodges as she cleaves halfway through the other. The dodger attempts to cut around her for a cheap shot. However, he, like many others before him, assumes that her heavy armor makes her slow. While it's true that she's slower than she would be without the suit, her enhanced strength ensures that she can still keep up with the reflexes of most lightly armored fighters. She twists to face him, savoring the sudden change in his smug expression. "Fuck," is all he mutters before her axe makes his acquaintance. She turns to the merc on the ground as he watches in terror. The eerie red dots in the black eyes of her mask stare straight into his frightened heart. He stands, loosely gripping his sword. He points it at her in one of the worst shows of defense she's ever seen. With a sigh, she throws her axe into the man as he doesn't even attempt to dodge. His body falls lifelessly. She almost feels sorry for him. Pulling the axe from his body, she focuses on the two men still fussing with the door. One of them panics and draws a grenade from his belt. That's suicide, Edelgard thinks as she prepares to throw her axe a second time. Yet, there's no need as the man's arm falls to the floor before he can set the device. A second passes. Then he screams as his brain registers the pain. His voice cuts out as a vibro sword shears through his neck. The other merc turns to the assailant, unable to get a clear view of her before a Brigid dagger lodges itself between his eyes. "Threat is being neutralized," Petra comments. Edelgard gives her another nod and picks up the grenade as the assassin unlocks the second door. Hammer. Status, she demands into the comm link. Team has all exits covered, he cheers. There's no way their leader is slipping through. Affirmative, is all she says in response. She and Petra enter the second room. It's a large, empty chamber with blast doors at the main entrance. With the power cut, the mercenary leader was effectively trapped in the room. The only way out is through the Flame Emperor, and even if there was another exit, her team has that covered. Still, they see and hear nothing in this pitch-black room. Edelgard presses a button on the side of her helmet, switching her mask's vision over to thermo. Several red, vaguely person-shaped blobs appear in the corners of the room. It's no use, she booms, my thermo vision sees you. Several gun-mounted lights switch onto the Flame Emperor. White shines vibrantly off her silver armor while Petra dashes into the shadows before the mercs realize there's someone else with them besides the Emperor. I don't know who or what the hell you are, their leader steps forward. But I'm sure as fuck gonna rip you out of that damn armor and stuff you in the ground. Edelgard almost jumps in her suit. The merc commander bears a striking resemblance to the bandit leader in her hallucination, right down to the stupid chin beard and bushy rat's tail he calls a ponytail. His eyes bug out as he stares at her. You, her distorted voice calls. Tell me your name before I kill you. Fucking asshole. I'm Costas of the Back Alley Bandits, and I'm gonna sell off what's left of you for killing my men. The idiot charges directly for her with a vibro axe. He swings the blade with as much force as he can muster, and she does the same. Her weapon smashes into his, shattering it on contact. The man looks at his jagged stub of a hilt. Shit. She swings her axe again as he attempts to jump back. The blade tears through his stomach as boiling blood splatters on the hard floor. Fuck. Fuck, he weakly exclaims as he fumbles to the floor holding his wound. The other goons stare in shock for a second before charging her simultaneously. Edelgard draws the grenade from earlier and activates it, tossing it into the crowd who all jump to the floor. Their futile gesture to get out of the blast range meets with disaster as a deafening explosion sends entrails and viscera across the very briefly lit room. Threat down. Return emergency power, Edelgard commands. Got it, shouts Bernadetta from the other end. Red lights flick on as the Flame Emperor's attention turns towards the large desk near the back wall of the room. The computer terminal hums as it reactivates and lights on the monitor blink to life. Edelgard stomps towards her goal, breathing a sigh of relief. Several things happen in the next 5 seconds. She hears Costas shouting, "Forgot about me, fucking jackass." She feels the heat of a vibroblade as it begins to tear through the back of her armor, just above her kidney. The tip of that blade starts to embed itself in that same location before stopping suddenly. Pain courses through her torso as she hollers. The blade slips out of her wound, clanging on the ground as Costas screams next. The Flame Emperor stumbles forward as Petra catches her. She helps Edelgard upright before scolding, "Please be having more awareness of your surroundings. You are supposed to be an apex predator, not the prey." "I'm fine. I'll heal." Edelgard has never been sure why, but the genetic modifications she underwent as a child left her with the ability to heal wounds faster and more thoroughly than most. More peculiarly, she heals even faster during combat after striking down opponents. She certainly isn't a geneticist, but that isn't something natural. It shouldn't even be physically possible. Then again, nothing about those experiments was natural. Shaking off her humiliation, Edelgard turns towards her companion before muttering a thank you. The assassin hums as she pulls her blade out of Costas' corpse. Arriving at the computer, Edelgard produces a small bug she plants on the underside of the monitor. The screen glitches out for a second before a purple chibi bear pops up in the center of the monitor. "Yes," she hears Bernadetta cheer, "I'm in. Their stupid closed server can't keep me out." Edelgard spends several seconds quietly watching files be downloaded and deleted at incredible speed. The purple-haired girl mutters, "Oh wow. Oh wow ow ow. Aw." Annoyed, Edelgard cuts her off. "Bear, what are you seeing?" "Well, it's gonna take some time for Linhard to sift through all this data, but judging by the file names, there's quite a bit of info here. We're already getting location data that'll help our cause. you know, when it's time to do the big, violent war stuff. The girl's excitement trails off as she whimpers the last part. Good work, Bear, Edelgard offers, trying to cheer her back up. The same goes to the rest of you, she says over the comms. Ah yeah. Casper shouts over the link, nearly blowing out the piece. Hammer, calm down, Flesh scolds. But victory is a time for celebration. The Flame Emperor interrupts, enough of that. We need to pack up in case one of this crude band actually had the brain to contact the Imperial enforcers. By the goddess, how did this even happen? Mercedes dabs disinfectant on the wound on Edelgard's lower back. The back plating of her armor had been completely removed to give the doctor access to her injury. Isn't the whole point of this armor to stop you from getting hurt? Her soft voice chides. It won't work well on most close-range weapons, Edelgard's naturally authoritative voice responds. She grits her teeth and focuses on her helmet sitting on Mercedes' desk to distract from the sting of the chemical. And I made a sloppy mistake. Mercedes sticks a bandage over the wound. Well, that's as good as it's going to get. With any luck, it'll be all healed by tomorrow night. How's our little firecracker doing? Dorothea hums as she walks into the medical bay of their dingy subway base. Tonight's been a long night. Don't tease me about this, Edelgard says. Dorothea winks, wounded pride. Gotcha. The songstress is decent with a knife in close quarters, but otherwise, relatively unfit for physical combat. Instead, she mainly contributes to Edelgard's cause through funding. Many consider Dorothea to be one of the best voices on the continent and then some. Easily top 3, at least. Luckily, the life of an idol brought in quite a bit of income, and Dorothea is not one to spend it frivolously. Not with her past. So, most of her money goes to girls' homes and equipment for the team. Admittedly, it helps to have someone other than Edelgard pouring capital into this cause. It makes her hobbies appear less suspicious. Are we still on for our day out with Petra tomorrow? The idol chimes. Only if you promise not to turn me into a third wheel, Edelgard's brow furrows. Why, Edie, are you implying something scandalous between the princess and me? If you're feeling left out, you can always invite Merci and make it a double date. The doctor coughs. Dorothea continues, or maybe you could throw poor Money a bone. As if on cue, the red-haired girl storms into the room. Why didn't you tell me you got hurt, Miss Eisner? She yells. I had to find out from Casper, of all people. Edelgard's assistant could be a handful. She's devoted, if nothing else. I appreciate your concern, Monica, but it's nothing, she shakes her head. Getting stabbed in the back is not nothing. In my line of work, it is, she stands. Now, if we're done here, I'd like to head home. It will take Linhard a couple days to fully break down all the data we recovered, and I want to use that time to let the team rest. But Monica starts. Good night, everyone, Edelgard finishes, before walking out the door. Don't feel bad, Monica, Mercedes smiles. She's just tired. Running this operation takes a lot of work. On our way out, I had the chance to observe the Red Canyon. Did you notice anything, Professor? The beautiful figure before her began to take shape. A familiar image, yet something still unknown. I did, the calm voice replies. Of course, I expected as much. The area was covered in ruins, each more curious than the last. They did not match the architectural style of any era or culture within the Empire. Or across all of Fodlan for that matter. That can only mean one thing. The valley's civilization must have flourished and fallen in the distant past, long before the Empire was established. Who do you think lived there? Memories of bizarre, unnaturally large ruins bubble to the top of her mind. They had to be far older than anything even in Nemesis time. Edelgard jumps awake. Another one of these dreams. Or hallucinations. Whatever they are, they're becoming a pain. And yet, there is something oddly compelling to them. Initially, it almost felt like her subconscious urging her to explore Fodlan's true past to rally more to her cause and discover the nature of the Empire's experiments. But recently, something in the memories feels more selfish. They've been starting to focus on this mysterious figure, giving her a little bit more detail towards the woman's identity every time. Midnight cyan hair. Indigo eyes. Dark armor. The barest hint of a smile. She rolls back to sleep. She can't explain why, but her bed feels empty tonight. Chapter 3, A Date and a Half. Dr. Didu Molinaro succeeds as one of botany's leading scientists. He's made strides in agriculture, community gardening, and even breeding simple, lovely flowers. Pays well. It's not the sort of job that would attract the attention of imperial enforcers. Unless you're Dusker. At first, Didu is confused as he walks down the street towards his apartment. He's a large man with a perpetual scowl. He doesn't often worry about smaller men jumping him in the dead of night. Unfortunately, most people are afraid that he's the one who's going to commit the crime. So much for his degree putting people at ease. Neither of his reputations deter the two men following him. Then a woman joins their group. After, a man with two more women, all wearing light enforcer body armor, step out in front of him. Didu Molinaro, the man starts. Before Didu responds, 6 more lightly armed enforcers approach from various points on the dimly lit street. It's clear this is a setup of some kind. To what does this concern? The doctor asks calmly. The man doesn't bother to list his credentials. He lazily flashes his badge too quickly for Didu to read what it actually says. He assumes he's a captain of some sort. No real introduction. Doesn't want to bother with any kind of investigation of excessive force. Not that those ever lead anywhere. We need to bring you in for questioning in regards to some events involving the tragedy of Dusker, the captain frowns. I've told your people everything I know years ago. I do not wish to make more trouble, the large man diplomatically reasons. A gentle giant through and through. Unfortunately, they're not the kind that see you that way. Governor Cornelia personally hands you a scholarship to Ferdinand Metro University for the optics. Lets the Empire paint over the genocide and pretend they don't single out anyone from Dusker, Almira, or Brigid. But now, you're still technically a loose end, and it's been long enough that they don't have to worry about questions if you have an accident. If you cooperate, the captain continues, this won't take too long. Don't make a fuss. We don't feel like cleaning up any blood. Didu stands rigid, considering his options. Then the street lamp flickers. It seems meaningless at first, only one of the more superstitious enforcers becomes jittery. Then another lamp flickers. And another. Fuck. I know what this means, the superstitious officer grabs her captain's wrist. We've gotta go, sir. Please. The captain forces her hand off, we do what I order. And I order what the brass orders. I don't give a fuck about some street myth. If a vigilante shows up, you fucking kill. The lights cut out completely. Then only the light above Didu turns back on with a faint perpetual buzz. Ah, fuck me. Get your weapons ready, the captain sighs. His unit follows the command, drawing out standard issue sidearms and vibro knives. The enforcers expect some form of ambush. All they get is the sound of calm, measured boot steps. The attention of the entire unit focuses in on the source as it approaches. A robotic, distorted voice reverberates throughout the street, walk away, and this doesn't end in violence. Fight, and I can't guarantee your safety. Every enforcer but the captain backs away as the hooded figure approaches. Holy crap, this guy, complains the captain. He points his thermo pistol at the figure, opening fire. The incendiary round flicks off her black armor with a violent spark. Shit, I knew it, the superstitious officer whines. The captain shakes his head and screams, the hell are you all waiting for? Light him up. The unit opens fire on the ashen demon to no avail. She simply walks up, letting the rounds deflect off her armor. Didu dives for cover behind a bench during the distraction. A stray ricochet hits the captain in the leg as he shrieks out in pain. He collapses, yelling out, enough. Enough. Use your fucking knives, instead. The demon stops, simply waiting for the enforcers to make their move. They hesitate, until 2 of them finally work up the courage to slowly flank around the hooded figure. She doesn't move. They both rush her at the same time, knives swinging. Again, she doesn't move. The blades snap on contact. Her head shifts slightly to gaze at the man on her right. He faintly sees her indigo eyes, heavily shadowed. The rest of the unit, minus the captain, rushes up during the pause, tackling the demon to pin her to the ground. She pushes them off with ease, sending them flying a few feet. As everyone stands back up, the demon calmly says, "Go home. This isn't worth your lives." The enforcers happily comply as they scatter off in every direction. Their minds race to plan how they're going to explain this situation. The only one who stays is the captain as he cradles his leg. She walks past him, ignoring his whimpering demands for answers. Dido stares at her, unsure of whether to be frightened or grateful. She extends a hand, easing him out from behind the bench. Her voice vibrates, "Dr. Molinaro. You didn't try to fight them, in spite of your size and strength. Why? I've seen exactly how that goes on the news. How the enforcers spin us to be the aggressors." He dusts off his form-fitting sweater vest. "I don't know what the fuck you want with him," the captain rasps, pulling himself up and pointing his pistol at Dido, "or if you are working together or what, but if he's who you want, then." Lady at Midnight whips out faster than the average naked eye can track. The shimmering cord of the Ashen Demon's blade vertically bisects the captain in the street with steam rising from his sizzling flesh. Dido turns away in disgust as he raises a hand to cover his nose. "What are you? What do you want with me?" The man steps back. "Dr. Molinaro, I am not going to hurt you," she asserts, "but I need to know everything you do about the tragedy of Dusker." The alarm clock installed in Gerard the robo-butler startles Edelgard awake. She looks up to see the tiny machine floating above her head. She reaches out to press the button on the top of his head, nearly slapping him into the ground. "What have I told you about doing that?" she groans as she pulls off her blankets. Gerard's yellow pixelated eyes blink as he responds, "Apologies, ma'am, but you have 2 hours to get ready before Dorothea and Petra arrive for your day out." Edelgard drags herself out of bed with a sigh. Gerard reads out temperature, traffic, and weather predictions, though she ignores him as she showers and makes herself breakfast. Said breakfast consists of runny eggs, crumbly toast, and burnt bacon. She'll be the first to admit, she isn't much of a chef. To ignore the flavor of the ruined meal, she turns on the news as a distraction. An Almiran woman with dyed lime hair and a green suit reads out a breaking headline. Still no substantial updates on the terrorist group responsible for the attack on an Imperial facility near the old Garag Mach territory. Most of the guards were left deceased in ways first responders have described as cruel and inhumane. Law enforcers feel confident that the resources required for such an attack narrow down the likely suspects to the Golden Deer, the Knights of Syros, and the newer group menacing law enforcement. For those of you unaware, this group has yet to officially state their name and goals. Edelgard clicks the TV off as she spits out a piece of charred bacon. The Knights of Syros, she thinks with disgust. If the term terrorist actually does apply to anyone, it's definitely them. They're the only anti-imperial faction known to indiscriminately bomb enforcers and civilians alike. Edelgard isn't naive, she knows collateral is inevitable in a world of revolution and oppression. But what those zealots do? It's like they don't care who gets hurt. All they want is to wound the Empire. Hell, we're probably all the same to them, anyway. Sinners against the goddess. A very dead goddess, if she were ever real in the first place. Not a very useful deity if she couldn't even stop Nemesis. She dumps the remains of her breakfast down the garbage disposal and takes a protein bar from her pantry. She essentially inhales the bar as she returns to her bedroom to prepare via glass stairwell. She certainly doesn't want for anything, living in her manse. Though she isn't nearly as well off as she would have been had her father never been usurped, the mercenary life still pays well. Especially when you're the team leader and Yuri Leclerc is one of your most frequent clients. Her house is full of the modern aesthetics one would associate with a privileged socialite. The glass stairs. Oversized and lonely bedroom with a giant window. Big fancy glass patio double doors. Skylight. TV that's half the size of the living room wall. Wine cellar. Although, the wine cellar is actually useful as it doubles as her armory. The outfit Edelgard chooses is rather simple. It's a plain black dress with a short skirt. With it, she wears a burgundy blazer, a gold necklace, scarlet leggings, and, of course, white gloves. These outfits can get a bit hot in the summer, but it's better than people asking questions about, or just staring at, her scars. Her fingers and wrists are ringed with numerous scars from excessively wielding her axe, as well as wearing jagged, unsanitized cuffs for several weeks of her childhood. The medical incisions and battle scars on her back and chest ensure that she'll never pull off a plunging neckline, like Dorothea, or a midriff, like Petra. Still, if I'm to be a socialite, she muses, I had better maintain some sense of style. If nothing else, I still have my hair, she runs her fingers through her snowy locks. It's the one thing that's been the envy of many other women she sees out in public. They're lucky they don't know the unfathomable cost of it. A waiter brings out 3 small devices. Each woman presses a button, setting off a holographic menu. Their outdoor table allows for a nice breeze while they're out. Though it's a bit cliché, they find comfort in returning to their usual coffee shop for lunch, especially after last night. So, Edie, have you actually been looking at the dating scene? Dorothea curls a brow. Her brunette hair is clipped off to the side. She wears a form-fitting wine-red dress with black pumps. Even for a casual day out, Dorothea is dressed exceptionally well. Of course, that's to be expected of a star singer. No, I haven't. And you, of all people, should know why, Edelgard retorts. Oh right, Dorothea pouts, Big Miss Eisner can't be bothered with matters of the heart like us mere mortals. She's far too important. Edelgard glares, I didn't say that. I simply have too many duties right now. It would be irresponsible of me to distract myself with silly crushes. Too many people count on me. If you say so. But you've gotta let yourself still be a person somewhere under all that responsibility. Otherwise, you might just lose it. The songstress leans back in her chair. Please stop teasing our friend, Dorothea. If she is not having happiness with dating others, then she should not, Petra cuts in. Unlike Dorothea, she's dressed quite casually. And yet, she still looks amazing. I'm a bit envious, really. The Brigid princess simply wears skinny jeans and a plain white cropped tank top which show off her perfect legs and washboard abs. For all the fighting Petra does, she has no truly visible scars to show for it. Then again, she's probably too fast to suffer any. Well, it's not as though I'm disinterested. I'm simply being realistic, Edelgard explains. Relationships are a distraction from my job. Besides, there's a serious chance my work could leave me permanently incapacitated. My life simply might not have room for a relationship before its end. Dorothea shudders and hunches forward. Please don't talk like that, Edie. Petra strokes the idol's back as Edelgard frowns. My apologies, I don't mean to bring down the mood. That's just where my head is at. Then that's all the more reason to put your head in a better place. Dorothea grins, forcing herself to bring back cheer. Carpe diem, as they say. Live while you can, Edie. Even if it's just a fling. People like me don't do flings, Edelgard says. Then what was that back in college? Dorothea winks. Edelgard admits to herself that Ingrid was the only person she ever seriously considered dating, though she'd never say as much to anyone else, let alone Dorothea. The stern blonde was a kindred spirit, one of the only other people who related to Edelgard's sense of duty and willpower. Of course, the night she intended on asking out her friend, she discovered something which quickly put a stop to that notion. What? Ingrid? I told you we were just friends. And I still don't believe you, the singer crosses her arms. What you believe is irrelevant. Didn't she ever tell you back then that she was engaged? Dorothea practically jumps. Wait, what? Seriously? To whom? When? Why didn't she say anything to me? Edelgard sighs. I only managed to pry the information out of her one night when we had gone out drinking. We were celebrating because she'd just won her Lancing tournament. Or was it the javelin throw? Maybe the Pegasus Cup? I can't remember. Dorothea rubs her temples. Fuck me, I tried to seduce an engaged woman. Repeatedly. Petra laughs. I believe that is what you call egg on your face. But do not be having despair, Dorothea. If you did not know, then you are not doing wrong. And you said I was the one trying to have a fling with Ingrid, Edelgard chuckles. So then who is being her groom? Petra asks. She never really talked about him much. All I know is that his father works for the Faerghus governor, and they've been engaged since middle school. Holy shit, is that legal? Dorothea jumps again. Not technically, but I don't think it was a formal engagement until they turned 18. Either way, you know how the rich and powerful get away with these things. Governor Cornelia won't care, as long as it doesn't get in the way of her politics. And Ingrid's father always seemed a bit obsessed with maintaining what little success he once had through Ingrid. That poor woman, Petra frowns. I never knew. She never said anything to me. The songstress buries her face in her hands. She likely didn't want to burden you with something you couldn't fix, or feel vulnerable revealing such personal secrets. I can relate. Edelgard thinks back to the experiments performed on her and her siblings. The scalpels. The injections. The strange vials of red liquid. The cells. The screaming. The piles of bodies from random proto-subjects taken off the streets. She thinks of her father, executed on live TV. Then her mind wanders to her stepfather and Dee, caught up in the tragedy of Duscur. A terrible misunderstanding from a false accusation by Governor Lambert, Governor Cornelia called it. There's nothing to be misunderstood about a near genocide. Or the accidental deaths of her stepfather and stepbrother in the ensuing violence. Governor Lambert was the only Faerghus politician to ever care about the Duscur. No one ever believed he would cross them like that. But no one was stupid enough to openly challenge a woman clearly willing to disappear entire races of people and her own political opponents without shame. No doubt her unfaltering loyalty to the God Emperor prevented any in-depth investigation. The awkward silence is interrupted by a buzz from Edelgard's phone. The profile is faceless. The contact name reads, Conniving Dipshit. Meet me at the usual place. I have a job. Pronto. Oh, crap. Who is it? Petra inquires. Business. Let me guess, Dorothea sighs. From you-know-who. Chapter 4, Through History's Looking Glass. Edelgard hates wearing hollow masks. She's fine with the full helmet, but the sensation of the little round devices mounted on her temples reminds her too much of the crude sensors that Governor Aegir's men used to monitor her brain activity. Still, she suffers through it for the sake of anonymity. The mask itself is rather simple. It's a midnight blue, near black, light field projected over her face, down to her upper lip. The mask mildly garbles her voice, much like the one worn by Petra. The hollow dye is much less uncomfortable. A quick swipe of a wand through the hair, and the desired color instantly projects onto the user. Its drawback is that it's easily disrupted through direct contact, and it only lasts about 2 hours. Whenever she journeys to Abyss, she prefers to wear the red. She finds it fitting, given the nature of the Flame Emperor's reputation in this business. Abyss itself is a curious anomaly in Fodlan. Normally, the Empire would swiftly decimate any location even hinted at being linked to criminal activity, that is, activity which doesn't suit the Empire's needs. Yet certain centers, like Abyss, were left relatively untouched. Perhaps it's because of business deals linked to corrupt politicians in Corpus. Perhaps a controlled, known underworld is easier for enforcers to monitor than otherwise. Probably both. Either way, Edelgard must first make her way through Garreg Mach City. The area is located in flatlands that were once a grand mountain, leveled in the days of old. Apparently, it contained structures that Nemesis found offensive, so he quite literally flattened the whole area. She steps off the bullet train and makes her way through the unassuming city streets. Passers-by and vendors alike give her strange looks. Understandable, given the mask. She finds an elevator terminal, swipes a hacked card into an attached kiosk, transferring anonymous credits into the system access, and climbs in. No one takes the elevator terminals unless they have to. The service leads straight to GMC's Undercity, the infamous Abyss. Needless to say, it's the bad part of town. Buildings are run down. Litter fills the streets. Cheap maxi lights hanging from the underside of the surface give the whole city a dingy, artificial atmosphere. Down here, the looks Edelgard receives are far raunchier or more menacing. Abyss is an unfortunate mix of the underprivileged, Innocents with lives ruined by corpo power plays, imperial deserters, professional thieves, mercs, bounty hunters, and wanted criminals. Almost everyone stares at Edelgard with only one of two looks, an unspoken challenge assessing her unique presence, or Asenleg's vision as Dorothea once called it. She ignores these people as she arrives at her destination. The club, Mockingbird Nights, doesn't open for another 3.5 hours, giving Edelgard plenty of time to deal with Yuri before too many unsavory individuals crowd the place. As of right now, only employees, all trained to kill, no doubt, inhabit the place. Edelgard clears her meeting with the bouncers and walks in. Her eyes take several seconds to adjust to the dark. A desk with a pretty receptionist. More bouncers. Workers setting up for the night. Music crew. Lighting crew. She makes her way to Yuri's lounge. Balthus, as expected, stands outside. This human-shaped bear sports a completely unbuttoned gray suit, rolled sleeves, and a mullet. Unfortunately for Balthus, most people are too scared to tell him how terrible his hair looks, or, if they're his friends, they let him keep it as a joke she doesn't think he's in on. Ah, the Fire King's secretary, right, he smirks, staring at her waistline. Not even close. Something like that, she replies curtly. Is Yuri in? He made this sound urgent. Yeah, he's just wrapping up some other business with unpaying clientele, so it should only be a few more minutes. Go wait inside. The lounge is everything one would expect of the namesake. It's spacious, lined with artwork and bookcases. There's a set of over-designed drinking fountains next to a restroom, he probably calls it a water closet, to sound fancy. In the back, there's a personal bar. 3 sets surround a large glass coffee table. 2 fashionable individuals sit on them, Yuri's right-hand women. Constance is a fierce person. She constantly wears a condescending smirk, treats people as one of her projects, and has a horrible temper. Alas, Edelgard cannot refute that she is a genius when it comes to chemistry, or that she's oddly charming. Frankly, her biggest mystery is her hair. Blonde with purple streaks. Edelgard has never been able to figure out whether the purple was dye or somehow natural. Next is Happy. The redhead possesses a calm demeanor, dry wit, and blunt nature that's refreshing compared to everyone else from Abyss. Most people would find Happy rude and unsociable, avoiding her entirely. However, Edelgard feels a bizarre, unspoken kinship with the woman. There's something deeper with her, she ponders. She has no idea what work these women actually do for Yuri or how he knows them, but they seem close. Well, if it isn't Firecracker. Happy smiles. Constance bellows her strange, half-forced cackle. Ah, the mysterious individual returns. Perhaps you'd be willing to actually answer my questions this time. One crucial advantage to our field is the anonymity it affords, Edelgard coldly retorts. Even so, we have every right to be concerned about the unsavory sort we let through here. If you mean us any harm, I assure you Balthus will. That's enough, Constance, Yuri interrupts from the doorway. Our friend has a point. Discretion is important in this business. Besides, I know idealists when I see them. She has a code of some kind, even if she won't admit it. Yuri wears a plum-colored suit with black gloves and heels. His wild lavender hair should be mismatched with the rest of his look, yet somehow it works. Ignoring his comment, she huffs, "You said this was important. Or are you going to continue wasting my time with frivolous insults?" Easy there, he turns towards Happy and Constance. Why don't you two clear out? Give the fiery beauty and me some alone time. Constance scrunches her nose as she and Happy leave. Don't be vulgar. As the door closes, Yuri sits on the counter of the bar, crossing his legs and leaning back. Whether you are the Flame Emperor or just their errand girl doesn't matter to me, he begins. But we both know that your team gets the job done when it really counts. We also both know the power of knowledge. What are you getting at? Edelgard demands. The Empire loves its secrets. It also loves its historical revisionism. Now, I think there's more to it than some political BS. I don't believe it's just a matter of, we were the good guys, they were the bad guys. I've been cobbling up breadcrumbs from various sources, and everything points in the direction of something bigger. Maybe ancient weapons. Maybe a lost war between the cloaks that really run the government in an ancient civilization. Maybe something to do with the goddess and Ceros. Hell, maybe it's all of those things. I didn't establish my organization on old Garag Mach soil for no reason. There's a deeper history here, and I can feel it. I want to know what it is. You're going to help me. Edelgard folds her arms suspiciously. Why pick my relatively new team with this mission? If this is your main ambition, surely there are more experienced merc groups. The Blade Breakers would be a guaranteed win. Yuri smirks. Yeah, but I can tell, you want to know just as badly as I do. I've been following your MO when it comes to the targets you hit and why you hit them. These answers are just as important to you as they are to me. Maybe more so, given how recklessly you throw yourselves into everything. Fine, she concedes. What's my team's target? Funnily enough, a lab. Not sure why a lab would be linked to the ancient past, but all my intel points in that direction. Really makes it that much more intriguing, don't you think? The Enforcer's neck crinkles with a grotesque crunching as his lifeless body ragdolls across the loading bay. That haunting image doesn't stop Casper from cheering and launching himself at his next target with his comically large war hammer. Flesh slips out of the grip of another Enforcer, tripping him forward then slicing his neck with her knife. All 4 of Petra's designated targets have already hit the floor. Indeed, most of the team's units are easily dispatching the laboratory's token resistance. The Flame Emperor herself has crushed half their number through sheer strength alone. This is suspiciously easy, she observes. Oh, Kman. Casper complains, why does everything have to be hard all the time? You know who gave us good intel, Bear cut their communications, and we ambushed the place. Petra chides him, it is not wise to be having premature thoughts of winning, Hammer. Our leader is having a bad experience with that just the other night. I'd appreciate it if you didn't bring that back up, Edelgard grumbles in her synthesized voice. According to the layout Monica, shit, hearts created, flesh inserts, the room we're looking for is 2 chambers over. And what were we looking for again? Casper asks. Edelgard walks up to the reinforced door at the end of the bay. Supposedly, we'll know when we find it. She grabs the sealed door and pulls. Even with the suit, forcing an opening is a marginally exhausting task. The Empire engineered even their most basic security doors to be at least 10 inches of steel that slide into position, tightly locking in place. Still, they're also the ones that engineered Edelgard to be a living weapon. The metal wrinkles around the digits of her gauntlets and warps at the base and sides of the entryway. It takes roughly 3 seconds for her to tear the door out of place. Tossing it to the side, she leads the team into the next chamber. It's oddly empty in here, Flesh wonders. Why leave such a large room vacant? That's because it's for weapons testing. Edelgard yells as she grabs Casper and Flesh, dragging them out of the center of the room. The rest of her team follows her instinct as a large mass of metal drops from the ceiling. The machine unhunches and unlocks its limbs. Once it stands to full height, Edelgard notes the opposable thumbs on its feet and hands as a bulky blade juts out of its right arm. Blue circles of light in the form of strange patterns pulse to life on the hulking mass. A single light on its block-shaped head makes the monster look like a cyclops. A strange insignia adorns its chest, one Edelgard feels as though she's seen in distant memories. Pipes rim its torso. Possible weak point. The hell is that? Flesh cries. Shit. Titanus. Form up. Edelgard orders. Specifically Titanus Mark V, she thinks. The original units were slow, mindless, inefficient, and had to be operated by a single pilot using unknown means. They were more golems of intimidation than actual combat-viable weapons. Unfortunately, more recent models displayed limited tactical thinking algorithms and improved reflexes. She knows she'll have a better shot at beating this thing if she fights it alone, rather than risking her somewhat inexperienced team. She motions for her team to hold formation while she approaches the machine. Emperor, what are you doing? Petra starts, ready to break form. Hold. I'll handle this myself. But. Casper calls as Flesh grabs his arm. Titanus swings its hefty blade down towards Edelgard. Luckily, she clears the strike with a mighty side jump. Despite the weight of the armor, Her own strength, combined with the suit's artificial muscles, gives her unparalleled jumping and sprinting prowess. Unfortunately, the suit's mass means that her reaction time will be slower than her mechanical opponents. She'll simply have to predict its movements. Edelgard baits Titanus into swinging for her again as it swipes sideways. Then again as it jabs forward. That's my opening. With another jump, she lunges at the ankle, balancing the weight of its attack. Her axe cleaves about a third of the way through the extremity, forcing it off balance. Still, its reaction time is too fast. Even while it's stumbling, it swipes an arm behind itself, backhanding Edelgard into a wall. Pulling herself from the dent, she struggles to get air back in her lungs with coughs and gasps. Most anyone else would have a severed spine and pulverized ribs. Titanus hobbles towards her faster than she expected. Those damn foot thumbs compensating for its ankle. It swings its blade at her once again, barely giving her enough time to roll out of the way. Though, instead of gaining distance, she keeps to her strategy of baiting its attack. It swings down at her a second time while she arcs her axe during a sidestep. Just as the blade pierces the floor next to her, she brings her axe down, hammering the edge into the floor. Before it can dislodge itself, Edelgard swings her axe again at the side of the blade. Putting all of her genetic and artificial might into the blow, she snaps Titanus' arm free from the now broken weapon. The monstrosity takes half a second to recalculate its next move. It actually looks confused. Edelgard laughs. Seizing her opening, the Flame Emperor lunges at the weakened ankle. Her axe cleaves further into its wound, causing it to stumble again. It slams a hand down in an attempt to crush Edelgard, though she catches the appendage with her forearms. She bends with the impact, noting that this certainly isn't good for her knees. It curls its fingers in, grabbing the mercenary in an attempt to pull her up. However, its awkward grip fails as Edelgard slips out of its grasp and falls on her back. Before she can react, Titanus raises its good foot, grabbing and holding Edelgard against the ground. She struggles to wriggle herself free as the machine lines up the jagged edge of its broken arm blade with her head. Flesh's grenade detonates against its back, sending steam out in jets as its torso piping bursts apart. Titanus makes horrible grinding and buzzing shrieks as it falls forward. Edelgard pops out of its grasp and leaps onto its back. With unyielding frenzy, she smashes her axe into the top of its head, flattening its box shape even further. She doesn't stop hitting it until its lights die down and steam ceases to pour out of its wounds. As her adrenaline rush fades, she suddenly feels the blood that had been trickling from her lips. The aching in her back and chest tell her that she's going to have horrible bruises all around her body. She calms herself, steadying her breath. Even if it hurts to breathe. "Are you okay?" Flesh asks as the rest of the team rushes up to her. "It's nothing," her inhuman voice replies. "Twice in a row, have I made a similar mistake? This is unacceptable." Edelgard directs her team to the final door in their way. It's only a matter of seconds until they're in the main lab. The sight that awaits them gives even Casper pause. Bodies scatter across the floor, seemingly uninjured. "Cyanide pills," Petra states, gazing into the mouths of one of the scientists. Casper shakes his head. "Were they afraid of what we'd do to them? Or what the Empire would have done to them if they told us anything?" "Likely both," Edelgard answers. Her team scatters through the room, rummaging through physical files and computers. Edelgard notices a strange container on something akin to a workbench. A weapon of some kind? She forces open the package, revealing a partially assembled gauntlet of some kind. Only it appears to be made out of bone. Flesh sifts through a terminal next to the workbench. "It's some kind of experimental weapon," she explains. "They weren't able to finish it because they lacked the resources." "What resources would they need to make something like this?" "Keep reading. It might say." She continues, "Well, they just keep repeating the phrase, Nabatean bone structure, over and over. I'm guessing all these guys already knew what that meant." "Nabatean? I'm unfamiliar with the phrase. Maybe our benefactor will know something." "Nabatean. Like a dragon." The Immaculate One stands before her, screaming in fury. Orange light forms in her terrible maw. Edelgard can't make out any words other than herself shouting, "Professor!" Then the same mysterious, beautiful figure from before dashes in between her and the dragon. The great being fires a horrible blast, something between fire and plasma. The woman takes the brunt of the blast and slides off of a crumbling cliff. Her chest tightens. She wants to retch. She doesn't know why, but it feels like she's watching her siblings die all over again. Edelgard. Flesh's cry brings her back to reality. Are you alright? You were dissociating and hyperventilating. Are you sure you didn't injure a lung? You may already have a concussion. I said it's nothing, she snaps. I'll have Saint perform a checkup later. And refer to me by my call sign when we're out in the field. Alright. Sorry, the girl looks down. Everyone. Pack up everything you can. We'll return to base and sort out the rest of this there. Chapter 5, Sifting. The team's base is little more than a shoddy subway station from a bygone era. Underground rail lines had been renovated a century prior as various branches of infrastructure struggled to tear down or rework the tunnels for newer, faster public transit. Some fringe stations, however, were left untouched simply so that governments and construction companies could save money on labor. Her people have chosen this station, in rundown New Valley territory, as most Empire dogs don't bother with such an out-of-the-way location. Only the occasional drone gets sent over the area to inspect it for gangs and squatters. Bernadetta's signal rerouters easily deceive their sensors. Edelgard drops her helmet on the floor as she sits on a sofa, making the whole piece of furniture squeak. She lets out the longest sigh she's had in a week while she pulls her gauntlets off. Careful, Linhard scolds, that helmet is expensive. And so is that couch, for that matter. What are you so upset about, anyway? If Casper's howls are anything to go by, your mission was a success. Don't worry about it, Edelgard says as she prods at the cut on her lip. Monica runs up to greet the Flame Emperor, picking up her helmet as she approaches. Miss Eisner. Is there anything you need? She hands Edelgard her helmet. Setting the armor piece on the seat next to her, Edelgard shakes her head, not for me directly. Meet with the others. They've brought back a lot of documents that we need to sort through. With any luck, they'll tell us something other than technical specs about what we found. Right away, Miss Eisner, the girl bows before running off. Did she actually just bow? Linhard raises an eyebrow. Ignoring him, Edelgard asks, where are you at with the documents we took the hit from the other night? Oh that? I've been done with them since this morning. Edelgard shoots upright, what? Why didn't you say something earlier? I thought I was being considerate, since you had to worry about your new mission. Linhard is a peculiarity, even among the noble-born of Fodlan. His father, Waldemar, is the Minister of Domestic Affairs. Waldemar has always seemed nice enough to Edelgard, though he always lacked the spine to challenge the Empire's problematic policies. Like many politicians, he was born into a life in which one does as instructed or dies. Corpus are even worse, they buy their way into that life. Of course, both groups get filthy rich off the dynamic, and they're almost always willing to look the other way. Despite his lackluster appearance, Linhard is one of the few who actually supports her cause. That's most likely because he wants out of that life due to his perpetual laziness, but still, it's enough motivation for him to work towards her ambitions. She sighs, my apologies. Thank you for your efforts. What did you find? He hands her a data drive, more than I expected. Less than I hoped. The good news is, we now have a list of several more classified Imperial locations. The bad news is, we don't know much about what purpose these places serve. Only where they are, and that they exist. Picking and choosing could lead us after a red herring. Hitting all of them is a dangerous waste of time, lives, and resources. And there's nothing in there about Fodlan's history. For whatever reason, they're even more tight-lipped about that than their weapons projects. Thank you, Linhard. I'll cross-reference some of these sites and see which ones are worthwhile, she says taking the drive. Goddess, there you are. Mercedes' soft voice rings out as she storms up to Edelgard. Mercedes, bless her heart, cannot sound intimidating for the life of her, even with her stern voice. The best she can do to make Edelgard feel bad is to be disappointed. Edelgard and Mercedes ran into each other 8 years prior in a certain Adrestian slum. Edelgard, only a girl, had met the young woman in an alleyway as she was being harassed by cutthroats. Her strength made quick work of them, though not without injury. Mercedes, thankfully, had a knack for patching people up. Ever since, she's been tending to Edelgard and helping her control her strength. True to her codename, Saint, she often helps those who cannot afford medical treatment, and she even helped Edelgard found her team. In exchange, Edelgard used her old funds from her solo mercenary days to put Mercedes through medical school. Even now, the doctor is the only friend Edelgard trusts enough to see her scars. She once asked Mercedes what a fair Gus woman was doing in Adrestia that day. "Looking for my brother, Emil. We were born here." Try as she might, even the Flame Emperor could not help the poor woman find her brother. Given the brief description Mercedes gave of their abusive household, she doesn't have it in her to tell the doctor that her brother is likely dead. "We need to have a look at you," Mercedes says. "According to Flesh, you got pretty banged up." "I hate doing this." Edelgard's torso is stripped down to the bra. Her arms awkwardly cross over her chest as Merci examines each of her bruises with cold, gloved hands. Do all doctors put their hands in a refrigerator before touching their patients? Edelgard scoffs. "Oh hush," the woman chides as she suddenly opens Edelgard's eye wide and flicks a light into it. She does the same with the other eye as her friend squirms. "It doesn't seem as though you're concussed." "Not that that matters much. Concussions are just like mild hangovers to you." She slides over to her desk in her wheelie chair and takes notes. "Unfortunately, there isn't much I can do for you, given the nature of your injuries. I can give you some aspirin, but the bruising will have to heal on its own." "That's more than enough." "Thank you, Mercedes." Mercedes turns to her friend with a nervous expression. "Flesh mentioned that you've been disassociating very briefly during missions. Is there anything you want to tell me about that?" The Flame Emperor sighs. "There isn't much to tell. They're just strange dreams and nothing more." "Dreams? While awake? That's just called a hallucination." She strokes her chin as she studies readings from Edelgard's armor. "Nothing in your helmet's sensors indicate neurological anomalies. Meaning it's not a tumor, or anything else serious." Edelgard slumps forward. "Not physically serious. But you've been through considerable trauma. It's likely something mental." Merci frowns. Edelgard doesn't respond, so Merci asks, "If you don't mind me asking, what do you see when you dream?" "Nothing that makes sense. It's like I'm living in a storybook world. Complete with magic, dragons, romance, and sacred swords." "Romance? With whom?" The doctor smiles. "You're as bad as Dorothea," Edelgard chuckles. "We're basically family. It's my job to be concerned with your love life. I could say the same to you. Still, there's more to the dreams than that. It's odd. And crazy. Utterly insane. But I feel as though these visions are the thing compelling me to search for Fodlan's true history." Mercedes' face twists as she battles conflicting instincts. As a medical professional, she begins, "I probably shouldn't say this. After all, there could be very tangible factors causing these hallucinations. But as a person of faith, I wonder maybe these aren't just hallucinations. As you said, maybe they are visions, perhaps from the goddess. I know you don't believe, but maybe she's calling you to something. Telling you to search for something greater." Edelgard looks down, doubtful. "I'll keep that in mind. Thank you." "I have no idea what the hell that word means," Yuri bluntly states. He's toying with the half-completed bone gauntlet. His hand slips in and out of it. He weighs it. He taps it against his desk. He pretends it's a wrist laser. Edelgard stares. "Really? All your fancy notes, your mysterious sources, your thirst for truth, and you have no idea what Nabatean means?" He stares her in the mask, putting a finger on his chin. "Nabatean bone structure. Best guess, it's a hard-to-produce artificial element that just so happens to look like bone. I guess it could be from some kind of rare creature, but no animal, extinct or otherwise, can possibly have this kind of bone density. Not based on the data you gave me. So, Nabatean bone is what?" Some kind of new combat material, she shakes her head. Maybe. It's just a theory. Either way, it's ludicrously durable and it charges and dispenses energy something fierce. Run electricity through this thing and give it to someone with a good arm? They're gonna give you a bad time. Still, that's not the oddest part. Must you always dance around every point you're trying to make? Edelgard rubs her chin. Humph. The really weird shit is that the Imperial's data suggests it needs a power source to activate it. You mean it was supposed to be attached to some kind of weapon or device, she asks. No. I mean that the material itself is supposed to be activated by something. We don't know what that is, since our target never finished it. Without that something, this is nothing more than a paperweight. I mean, you could club someone really hard with it, but still, he lifts the back of the gauntlet up, staring at it. Then he turns it to Edelgard. See here? This indent supports the data. It looks like something was supposed to go here. What battery could possibly go into a perfectly semi-spherical indent like that? She scoffs. How would this power source even work? Again, no clue. We can probably get some answers if either of us manage to procure a finished unit. Where else would we look? She taps her knee impatiently. In another top-secret lab, obviously. The questions are, which one and where? That's the tricky part which will take some time to suss out. In the meantime, do you mind if I keep this? He grins at her. All right. If you add half my usual finder's fee to the amount you're already paying us. That's outrageous, he sneers. I'm only charging half my fee. In exchange, we agree to share any other information we discover. She stares him down. Fine, he sighs, it's a deal. The pair shake on it. Edelgard admires the gorgeous setting sun through her patio door for several seconds. Then she promptly falls face first into her sofa. She ignores the news blaring in the background. Another bombing by the Knights of Syros. Climate change. Some psycho bisected a person in the middle of the street. Someone posted a viral picture of a potato chip shaped like Nemesis, and the God Emperor's social media account gave it a thumbs up. She turns the volume down right as her phone rings. With a groan, she reluctantly pulls it off the table. Son of bitch, she mutters to no one as she sees the caller. The profile picture is a fairytale-style devil, and the contact name reads, even more conniving dipshit. She scrambles for a voice distortion device, which she plugs into the phone just before answering it. What is it, Claude? Her Flame Emperor voice curtly demands. Claude von Regan is perhaps the most tactically gifted man in all of Fodlan. Which naturally makes him a schemer, through and through. Even so, there's a heart somewhere under all those lies. The public knows him as Khalid, an emissary from Almiran territory, which was utterly decimated by Nemesis in a recent war. Their culture values strength, and they ended up picking a fight with an inhuman force. Now their survivors pay the price every day. As far as Edelgard can tell, Khalid uses his Claude identity in the underworld to destabilize the empire that ruined his people. She's not sure what his endgame is, but one thing is for certain, they're both very ambitious people who want to watch the current system burn. Wow, no love for the wicked. Or was that Rest? His smooth voice taunts. Anyway, I've got a pretty big job for you. Lots of money. And death probably. You're not doing a good job of enticing my services, she replies. Now hold on. It's got to do with corrupt corpus. That's your thing, right? And this one's dirty as they come. She can hear him winking through the phone. And? Who is it? She rubs her forehead. Governor Gloucester. Damn it, Claude. What have you gotten yourself into now? Do you know much risk I'd be putting my team in just for touching anything adjacent to that man? He laughs. Oh, please. That man isn't anywhere near as dangerous as Agir or Cornelia. That's certainly true. Besides, this has actually been a long time coming. And don't worry, I'll give your team plenty of backup, and I'll even pay triple my usual rate. I've got a lot riding on this. She sits up, tense. What are we in for? I need some evidence from one of his compounds. It may finally be enough to put that trash fire of a man away. Trust me, even the Empire won't be able to pretend he's clean. That said, he knows it's risky business, so he's hired, not one, but 2 merc troops to guard the place. Real wackos called the Death God Gang and the Beast Tamers. And no, they don't have actual animals. I checked. Goddess, she mumbles. And what's my backup? The man cackles, I've got some of my own people on it. They're the best I have to offer, and I mean it when I say that I trust them completely. That's not something I take lightly. So it's his infamous Golden Deer. I'm also trying to wrangle another merc gang, but they keep telling me they've got another mission. It'll be iffy if they can make it. She makes sure he hears her groan, very well, this had better be worth it. All right, he cheers like a child, thanks, Torchy, I'll send you the details. Gather up your team up 2 nights from tonight, and I'll give you coordinates so our teams can go over the mission. Chapter 6, Blood Under the Moonlight. The flickering blue holomap displays a massive complex set next to silos in a barn. A large stretch of land extends out in all directions. Underneath, the map reveals a series of sub-basement corridors and chambers. This is farmland owned by Governor Gloucester, Claude announces. The situation's a bit complicated, but the gist is this: he has an art gallery somewhere else in Leicester territory for money laundering. He's been disappearing merchants that work with his competing company owned by Ignaz's father, which is one hell of a conflict of interest. The 2 teams surrounding the interface all stare at Ignaz. He blushes through his thick glasses as he shifts his gaze to the floor. Ignaz, the Golden Deer's sniper. Claude continues, this facility is where he keeps all of the artwork he's stolen from the raids. It may or may not also double as a lab working on unholy experiments for the Empire. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that the Empire's been providing him with resources to deal with his personal problems in exchange for the use of his facilities. We make what Gloucester's been doing public, and the Empire will quickly burn its bridges with him to save face. There's no way their law enforcement will be able to ignore evidence that damning. It won't fix Leicester, but it's a good start that'll rile up the public. It may even win over some of his political opponents, given how fickle they can be in this territory. The Flame Emperor steps forward. Do we know what kind of experiments they've been working on? Claude shakes his head, not sure. Knowing the Empire, it's something that'll be good at killing. I want everyone to watch themselves. Don't take unnecessary risks. Expect the unexpected. We have no idea what their crazy science has cooked up. Maybe it's something as simple as a new kind of gun. Maybe it's a chemical weapon. Maybe it's something a bit more mystical. Though his head doesn't turn from the map, his eyes ever so briefly flicker towards a strange girl standing off in the corner or the room. Edelgard doesn't entirely know why someone so scrawny and lightly armored is with the Golden Deer, but she can take a guess at the horrendous truth. The girl's hair is unnaturally pale, much like hers. Purple clothing covers almost every inch of her body, possibly hiding terrible scars similar to Edelgard's own. Her pink eyes glare into the hollow map, never flinching. That's it. Good job. The professor's soft hands guide Edelgard's own into the proper form as she helps the struggling princess ignite a simple fire spell. Thankfully, she's turned away from the woman, lest she see her embarrassing blush. Next to her, Lysithea forms runes out of light. Energy javelins erupt and skewer the training dummies. Despite her age, the girl's already mastered Dark Spikes. Edelgard isn't sure what kind of spell that truly is, but it's deadly, nonetheless. Claude repeatedly taps her helmet, tink tink tink. Earth to Torchy. You alright in there? She swats his hand away. I'm fine. Just wondering why you let someone like her into such a dangerous situation. She points to Lysithea. Hey, the girl interjects, I have every right to be here. Just because I look a bit young doesn't mean I'm useless. The Emperor shakes her head. I imagine you're close to the same age as most everyone else here. How old you are has nothing to do with it. Even so, don't underestimate me, the girl pouts. Chill, Torchy. Lys is actually pretty capable, he winks. Believe it or not, she's one of our big guns. Still, I don't plan on using her if I don't have to. If the other team I hired actually bothers to show up, she can stay on the bench eating her candies. Would you both stop belittling me? I didn't have to come, you know. Maybe I should just leave all of you to die. A sorrowful woman with tied-up blue hair and a matching blue uniform inches up, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. Please, Lysithea. He's only teasing. You know it's bad for your health to get so worked up. Marianne, the Golden Deer's field medic. Blame him, not me, the girl retorts. Ugh, goddess. All this talking and not doing. Can we please get this show on the road? They told me I could hit something, a loud blonde complains. Raphael, the Golden Deer's brawler. He's a scruffy, massive man whose muscles even dwarf Balthus. Edelgard is pretty sure he's already Casper's new best friend as her own blue-haired merc cheers in agreement. Please be having patience, friend, Petra chimes in. We are still needing a plan of attack. We hit M fast and hard. That's our plan. Claude grasps his fist dramatically in the air. What? Edelgard stares. That's it? You're supposed to be the greatest tactician in Fodlan. He offers a toothy grin. Relax. That's just what I want them to think our plan is. In reality, you'll be leading in our heavy hitters. They'll think it's a head-on attack organized by the infamous Flame Emperor, and they'll send out most of their forces to deal with you. Meanwhile, I'll lead all of our sneakies into the facility. We'll collect evidence, wreck the experiments, interrogate lab rats for info, etc. Hopefully your boisterous nature doesn't give our entire operation away, Edelgard taunts. You wound me, he says with mock derision as he pulls out a weapons crate from under his projector table. I'm plenty capable of subtlety. He opens the container and pulls out a gaudy bow made of bone. The Emperor's heart nearly stops as she immediately recognizes its similarities to the artifact she recovered. Casper cocks his head, a bow and arrow. It's one of the Empire's experimental weapons, like we saw earlier, she explains. How the hell did you come by this? Wouldn't you like to know? He winks again. I'm serious, she glances at the strange reflective red stone affixed to it. Is this the power source? What even is that? He waggles his finger. All trade secrets, my dear. If you're nice to me, I might just tell you one day. Yeah, definitely not right now. Damn that cheeky wyvern's ass of a man. The Flame Emperor's group slinks through the crops. They quietly set low-yield explosives to the farm equipment in the open field, then they rally several hundred yards from the entrance to the base. Her team consists of Casper, Raphael, and most of the men and women from both troops. Marianne, Mercedes, and other field medics are arranged near the back on standby. To her side stands a dainty pink-haired woman named Hilda holding a vibro axe. Her mid-level body armor is a mix of pinks and burgundy with white accents. Regardless of her stereotypical girlishness, Edelgard can damn well tell that she's a lot stronger than she looks. Hell, like Edelgard, Hilda probably learned long ago how to trick people into underestimating her based on her size. Oh, I always get so nervous with these things, she puffs out her cheeks. Drop the act. We're almost ready to begin. I'm just saying I don't want to die out there, she tilts her head. If you can't protect me, Claude will be awful mad at you for letting his fiancée die. Edelgard has to stop herself from sputtering in her helmet. Thankfully, Bernadetta cuts in. Claude just sent the signal. They're in position, her squeaky voice asserts. Edelgard breathes, then presses the trigger to the detonator. A few tractors, moisture dispensers, and other miscellaneous equipment burst open with flashes of orange and yellow. Only a second passes until the alarms sound. Voices audibly shout from the facility as mercs and enforcers scramble in response. The enforcers hurry out of the building, taking point. The mercs sprint out and run straight into the fields. It's easy to tell which group has been better disciplined. Oh yeah! Raphael shouts as he jumps out of the dark field. His spiked vibro gauntlets make quick work of the mercs shakily rushing at him. Their bodies fold under his incredible blows. Each merc that approaches him is either crumpled or sent flying. To her side, a merc screams as her body, now cleft almost in two, falls. You, so gross, Hilda complains as she stares at the blood on her oversized axe. Yet the delicate beauty has no trouble beheading another merc that jumps at her immediately after. It would be funny if it weren't so horrifying to watch. Edelgard's not sure if she should be impressed by or afraid of Hilda. All around her, chaos breaks out. Flashes of blue, pink, and blonde tear through the battlefield, alongside the many units on her side. The Flame Emperor, herself, strides through the field. Mercs and enforcers alike fire upon her or slash at her. She ignores the bullets as she muscles through small groups of enemies. Two foes are split in twain with a swing of her axe. Another is sent flying by her weapon's blunt side. Each and every one of them break before her. It doesn't take long until the enforcers identify who they're dealing with. She can hear some of the commanding officers bark orders to target her. Those same officers loudly announce her officially listed bounty of 750,000 credits for any merc who takes her head. In less than a minute, it seems like half of every enemy on the field starts rushing towards her. Not very smart, considering a lot of them get slain by her team members they tried ignoring. Casper, Hilda, and Raphael naturally form up around her. Despite their appearances, they certainly know what they're doing. They efficiently strike down the enemies poorly attempting to flood them as the rest of her team flanks around the massive group. Her main concern is the officers preparing to fire on Casper and her new friends. They had initially avoided firing on her group so they wouldn't hit their own comrades swarming in the way, yet it seems they're too desperate to care anymore. Her allies struggle to find cover with Hilda electing to stand directly behind the Flame Emperor. Some loud pops interrupt the oncoming fire as Edelgard sees her attackers fall one by one. She hears one of them scream "Sniper!" as they rush back inside the building for cover. "I've got you," Ignatz cuts in over the communicator. With the main threat out of the way, her team continues slaughtering the mercs before her. After a couple more minutes, some of the mercs begin to flee into the fields. One of them, who appears to be some kind of leader in their troop, shouts at the Flame Emperor. "You think you're scary? You're gonna regret messing with the Death Gods. Our boss is gonna mess your shit up, you hear? He's gonna fuck your damn corpses," he screams, shaking. How crass. His taunt would be more threatening if his entire group wasn't running away from her. Regardless, his body falls easily enough as Ignatz guns him down. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," he apologizes over comms. "Ignatz, don't apologize for the enemy," Hilda scolds. Even so we're winning," the rosy woman cheers. "This is easier than I thought." "Which means it's going to get worse," the Flame Emperor warns. "Wow, they are really clearing out. I didn't think they'd be this disorganized," Claude observes. His team kneels poised on a walkway just under a skylight, watching as nearly every merc and soldier chaotically clamber out of the building towards the explosion. Flesh, Petra, Bernadetta, over comms, and some of the more subtle members of the joint team all await his commands. "A lot of mercs willing to take any job are cheap help," Flesh explains. "Their shit training looks like it's dragging the enforcers down with them, since they have to compensate." He chuckles, "Makes our job easier. Bear, what you got for us?" There really isn't much on the upper floors, other than the stolen artwork. Obviously, you'll want to avoid breaking that stuff as you fight your way through. I can get you into the sub-levels, but the firewalls on their computers are too secure for me to hack them from here. You'll have to check them out yourselves." "Oh, great. Into the lion's jaws, then," Claude sighs. His stealth team easily picks off the enemies distracted by the chaos outside. His allies stare in awe of his weapon. Every time he prepares to loose an arrow, a bolt of orange energy appears, piercing through anyone and anything he targets. The weapon shimmers a similar color every time he wields it. Though he refuses to explain the mechanics, Flesh makes a mental note to study the weapon each time it activates. The group makes their way to the first basement door, which Bernadetta hacks open. They follow the corridor, clearing out every room they find. Suspiciously enough, there aren't that many people. Only some token guards. He speculates that most of the scientists have hidden themselves in the most secure location in the lab. They progress from room to room, floor to floor, stripping data from various terminals using thumb drives and bugs. With any luck, the Flame Emperor's forces will finish exterminating the forces up top, Claude hopes. That would make checking this place out much less of a rush job. Finally, Bernadetta leads them down to the last sub-basement level. This is it," she stutters. "Whatever kill-death stuff they've been developing here will be on this level." The final set of stairs empties out into a single, narrow corridor. At the end is a solitary door. I am having the bad feeling about this, Petra cautions. You and me both, Flesh comments. All right, ladies, Claude prepares his bow, our deaths most likely wait on the other side. Clench your butt cheeks. The door slides open. Scientists, frightened, gather in a corner. There are 3 tables with conscious victims strapped to them begging to be freed. Strange automated syringes filled with a viscous black substance hover just above them. In the middle of the room stands a tall man with a gaudy 3-piece suit. His uniform is void black, much like his wavy hair which swoops over one of his pale, yellow eyes. It seems our guests have arrived, his menacing voice rasps. Another voice cuts in from a console on the wall, Hubert, I beg you. My men will be in tow shortly. We can route these ne'er-do-wells then. Please don't. Sir Lawrence, the man interrupts, with all due respect, you haven't seen the situation. Things have grown most dire, indeed. We will have to execute Plan C, as it were. The vampire-esque man presses a button on a trigger, causing the syringes to inject their victims. Claude shouts at the man as he attempts to pierce him with his bow. Only, the man disappears in a red ring of light. Holy shit, did the Empire invent a teleporter? Flesh yells. I do not think so, Petra adds. There is no pad for teleportation of any kind, like in Hammer's shows. Cut the chatter and focus. Claude exclaims, pointing at the people strapped to the tables. Their screams start shrill. They helplessly beg as they writhe in pain. But soon their words become incoherent crying as their bodies thrash. Their high voices distort to low and guttural groaning with limbs inflating and twisting. Flesh turns away as Petra brings a hand to her mouth. One of the other team members retches. Claude turns and grabs their arms, we have to go. Now. The tables break beneath the victims' increasing mass as their skin warps to a rough, charcoal-colored hide. The jaws of these unfortunates crack apart and reform into gaping, toothy maws. Their eyes turn red and pulsing, and their nails grow long and sharp. Before long, the creatures grow large enough that the steel walls can barely contain the 3 of them. The last of the mercs and enforcers flee the scene as Casper and Raphael high-five. However, their celebration is short-lived as spotlights from 4 dropships shine on the Flame Emperor's team. 6 dozen significantly better armed enforcers jump from the aircraft, trapping the team between the Empire and the building. The lead ship focuses its light on Edelgard, specifically. Ah, man, Raphael complains, my muscles getting tired. Hilda shakes her head, you're the one who wanted to fight a bunch of guys. You get what you wish for. And so do I, apparently. The so-called Flame Emperor, a voice booms over a microphone, this is Lawrence Hellman Gloucester of the territory your band is currently bloodying. You and your band of terrorists are wanted for countless crimes against the Empire. Treason. Mass murder. Conspiracy. Information theft. Do I need to go on, or will you surrender peacefully? No one else needs to die today. Before she can retort, both parties hear shouting. They look over to the facility entrance to see Claude's team at a full sprint headed in their direction. They're shouting warnings of some kind. Edelgard sighs, a little late considering Gloucester's reinforcements are already. The massive front doors to the complex wrinkle like paper as glass bursts everywhere. An unholy beast tears through the front of the building with a roar no living creature should be able to make. What the fuck is that? Hilda screams. Okay, a big monster. Gotcha, Casper whimpers. The remaining 2 beasts rip through the entrance, joining their comrade in ear-splitting roars. The enforcers focus all their lights and weapons on the creatures. 3 big monsters, Casper's voice cracks. Claude's crew joins up with Edelgard's, all out of breath. Okay, he pants with sweat dripping from his brow, remember when I said, expected the unexpected? I wasn't expecting that. Chapter 7, The Big Guns. Some of the enforcers open fire on the monsters without order. One of the beasts screams and picks up a nearby partially destroyed tractor, hurling it at the large group. The enforcers scatter as Lawrence shouts orders from his craft. His echoed voice sweeps over the field, hold your fire. As horrendous as these creatures are, we have the advantage. Press the terrorists towards the creatures, and let them handle the scum. We'll deal with the monsters after. Claude wipes his brow. Well, I was hoping to use those things as a distraction. There goes that plan. We can't let those monsters roam free, the Flame Emperor asserts. Wait, you want to fight them? Of course not, she scolds, but if the enforcers can't succeed in putting them down, they'll wreak havoc on the first civilian population they find. Listen, as much as I hate to say this, I'm not sure we can afford to let that be our problem, he laments. We should at least try. The politicians and military will only stand up for the masses when it suits them. We have to prove that we're better. That's surprisingly idealistic of you, he smirks. If it becomes clear that we cannot defeat these monstrosities, we will retreat and risk the collateral. But that has to be our last resort, Edelgard concedes. Claude looks almost apologetic for once in his life, but before he can respond, Raphael cuts in. The bad guys are closing in on us. And we don't really have anywhere else to go. Claude groans. Ugh, fine. We'll play your game. Hey, Liz, he says over comms, we've kinda been backed into a corner. Now would be a real good time to help us not die. Oh, would you look at that? Lysithea sassies over their earpieces, you still can't do anything without me. A gold ring of light flashes next to the cornered team, forming runes on the ground. Edelgard only sees them for a second, but she recognizes them from her dreams. Lysithea warps in, clearly unhappy. Whoa. Casper wonders. How'd you do that? It's far too late to be dealing with this mess, she complains, ignoring Casper. Is it past baby's bedtime? Claude mocks. Do you want help or not? Ignore him, the Flame Emperor shouts. We have bigger problems. Lysithea looks at the enforcers closing in, then at the beasts. For some suspicious reason, she doesn't seem the least bit surprised by the creatures. She turns to Claude and explains, I can help fight the beasts well enough, but groups of trained enforcers are going to be a problem. All it takes is one good hit from them, and I'm down. All right, he assents, we'll keep the Empire off your back, just take down those monsters. A motorcycle engine faintly hums in the distance. Wait, all of them, she questions, I meant that I can take on one of them at a time, not all at once. I'm going to need help. Before he can argue back, Marianne runs up and interjects, Claude. You can't make Lysithea fight all those creatures by herself. You know what that will do to her health. The hum draws closer. We don't really have a choice, he snaps. It'll take everyone we have just to fight the enforcers. Flesh shouts, figure out a plan. Now. They're almost on us. As she says this, the enforcers slowly press towards them, weapons at the ready. The team forms up, gradually backing away from their opposition, who is now only several yards from them. They struggle to focus on both the enforcers and the demonic beasts at the same time, as the beasts, triggered by territorial rage, charge for the team. The group scatters but can't go far as they run into a wall of defense by the Empire. Claude looses his arrows into their forces. Edelgard watches his mysterious weapon in amazement. Still, her own team does not shy away from the fighting. Either way, however, their forces are clearly caught between a rock and a hard place. The hum becomes a roar. A vibro lance impales an enforcer captain at high speeds, dragging him across the battlefield as the rider cheers with all the enforcers turning their attention towards her. Her orange jacket flaps in the wind. Her spiky bright hair, buzzed short on the sides and back, makes her look like a streak of fire trailing in a rage through the night. She wears a black cropped top, showing off her ridiculous ABS, adorned with an intricate tattoo. The Imperial captain slips off her lance as she slices through her enemies at an intense velocity. Edelgard recognizes the rider quite well, Leone Pinelli. Another rider soon joins the fray. His large bike thunders as his weapon, a mix between a lance and the biggest greatsword Edelgard has even seen, cleaves through large swathes of enemies. His braided ponytail flails behind him. This is the second strongest man Fodlan has ever known, next to Nemesis. A legend more than 300 years in the making. Edelgard wouldn't believe the stories behind his age if it weren't for the countless verified Merc accounts dating back for generations, Nemesis' own unholy lifespan, as well as her own previous experiences with his team. Even the Empire recognizes the Blade Breaker's skill, listing him with the highest bounty in all of Fodlan. Several more bikes and a dozen Humvees follow Geralt's lead, carrying over 100 mercenaries, strong and rowdy. They roll like an angry sea into the enforcers, scattering their position. Everyone in the world has heard stories of the Blade Breakers and their exploits. This is the team one joins when they've proven they're the best of their generation. Certain bloodlines even trained their children to join Geralt's band, banking on a family reputation of world-renowned mercenary work. Holy shit, I thought they were going to bail on me. Claude breathes deeply as his posture relaxes a little. Geralt pulls up to Claude and Edelgard and jumps off his bike. The blade of his weapon is a bit longer than even his massive frame, yet he wields it as though it were weightless. Sorry we're late, Geralt's deep voice rumbles. We got caught up clearing out a rat's nest of those Cyros creeps. Good, great, whatever, just help us deal with these guys. Claude demands while knocking an arrow and sniping an enforcer. You heard him. Geralt shouts to his troop. Tear these guys a new one. His mercs roar as they bleed through the enforcers like acid. Edelgard's jaw drops as she recognizes one large mustachioed man adorned in spiked, white body armor. The man jumps from a moving vehicle and onto a group of Imperials. His vibro axe peels through them as the survivors back away in terror. His goofy smile sharply contrasts his violent action. What? He asks. I just wanted to ask you a question. No need to keel over. Alois is either a very wholesome family man or a violent sociopath. Then again, maybe a similar sentiment could be said for most of the Blade Breakers. However, good things, as Edelgard well knows, must come to an end. The Imperials fall easily enough with the rest of their troops retreating. Their dropships flee, and oddly, Lorentz says nothing as they withdraw. Yet the main problem still remains, the terrible creatures. The three merc teams surround the beasts, but no one gets close enough to engage. So, what's our play here, Claude? Hilda asks. Geralt interrupts, the Flame Emperor and I will take the monster on the right. And the rest of you guys can handle the other two. Claude adds, we can take the one in the middle. Lysithea can handle the one on the left. Lysithea sighs in relief, that makes things considerably easier. The Flame Emperor and the Blade Breaker rush their creature, flanking around to either of its sides. The beast shifts its angry gaze between the two, deciding on which to target. It goes for the squishy one with no shell as it brings a hand down to crush Geralt. The man raises his oversized weapon in defense. The massive extremity crashes into the blunt side of his blade, but rather than knocking him over, he pushes against the strike. The beast's hand remains on the weapon as it tries to push Geralt into the ground. His heavy combat boots slide in the dirt, but he doesn't give. With a ferocious shout he shoves back with all his might, actually forcing the creature back by about 3 feet. Now, kid, he bellows. Edelgard jumps onto the creature's back as it's distracted. She brings her axe down into its eye. With a twisted holler, it throws its head back, black blood gushing from its face like an unholy fountain. Edelgard rolls when she hits the ground, though she gets back to her feet quite quickly. The beast turns towards her, roaring in hellish fury. Geralt repeats the strategy, jumping towards the monster's back as it's distracted and swinging his behemoth blade. It slides into the top of the beast's head, causing it to squeal as it falls forward. Seizing her opportunity, Edelgard sprints forward and slashes her axe across its throat while it's still reeling from Geralt's blow. Inky blood spews all over the two of them as the monster spasms on the ground. To Edelgard's horror, its body dissolves into a young woman wearing a shredded medical gown, now lifeless. Geralt sighs in resignation and regret. Much like Lysithea, this doesn't appear to be new to him. Another beast screams out as a vibro lance slices 2 of its fingers off. Leonie rides around the beast on her bike. Over here, she taunts. As it turns, an energy arrow lodges into the side of its head. It huffs in annoyance as it turns back around to Claude. Wow, your distraction really worked, he sarcastically bellows to Leonie. Oh, shut up, she sulks as she impales the beast's ankle. While it begins to turn again, Hilda and Casper sprint towards its other ankle. The pink-haired terror swings her axe into one side, cutting almost halfway through it. Casper immediately follows up with a strike from his hammer to the other side of its ankle. With a dreadful cracking squelch, its ankle folds in on itself with blood spewing directly into Hilda. She shrieks and swears while the beast falls over. Leonie rides back around to its front, jabbing her lance into one side of its skull. Claude fires arrows into its other side until it stops yelping and moving. The creature dissolves into a young, mangled man, causing Leonie to bring a hand to her mouth in shock. Lysithea stands before the final creature, annoyed. It growls at her and charges. She floats above the ground as a circle of gold runes forms in front of her hands. A beam of golden energy spears down from the night sky, illuminating the whole battlefield. The strange beams melts through the beast's right leg, causing it to stumble and roll mid-charge. As it hollers in pain, she extends an arm while a circle of purple runes forms around her feet. Several dark energy spikes appear around the beast and burrow through its head. The girl shakes her head when its corpse dissolves into another young man. "Those wicked people," she murmurs. Dark spikes Edelgard recognizes. What is that power of hers? And what the hell is going on with these visions? "Father, what was the Empire working on in your facility?" Lawrence queries into the intercom, his voice shaking. Governor Irwin responds, "That's irrelevant." "Did you catch the terrorists?" "Father, I need to know," Lawrence pleads. The aircraft's pilot tries her best to ignore the awkward tension between the governor and his son, keeping her eyes trained on their flight path through the night sky. The governor sighs, "We all have to make sacrifices for our country, son. We make hard choices for both the protection and the prosperity of our people. Choices that others would consider cruel if they knew, but we do it to stop the radical groups like you've seen today. They are evil people, Lawrence. And as they amass more influence and power, those experiments are our only hope to stop them." "Oh, of course, Father." The coalition of mercenaries rambles around a large makeshift camp a few miles from the battle site. There are several tents, bonfires, grills, and coolers full of presumably alcoholic drinks. The field medics work overtime, patching up wounds from exhausted men, women, and other assorted mercs. Mercedes and Marianne find themselves particularly popular as several people poorly attempt to flirt with them. Luckily, Leonie is with them to prevent anyone from becoming too much of a problem. Edelgard's troop is the best behaved compared to the other two groups, much to her shock. Everyone celebrates with raucous fervor as voices cheer into the crisp night air. Gerald sits next to the Flame Emperor, quietly sipping from a beer can. There's a comfortable silence between the two as they enjoy the good spirits of their people. Claude breaks this silence as he approaches with Hilda, clearly buzzed, wrapped around his arm. "Hey, you two." "Regan," Gerald greets. Edelgard says nothing. "So, what's the story between you?" Claude begins. "I had no idea that the Flame Emperor and the Blade Breaker were already buddies when I hired you." Gerald scratches his chin. "That's right. You weren't in Fodlan back then." "Well, it's nothing special. They just ran a few missions with us before they started their own team." Gerald wasn't what Edelgard had expected when she first met him. For being so feared in the underworld, he was quite gentle. For being so respected for his strength, he was quite humble. For being such a long-lived merc in a corrupt empire, he was oddly sincere. She could tell there was a great sorrow behind him, the sort of pain that makes titles and reputation meaningless. It wasn't until his lieutenant, Eloise, was drunk one night that she found out why. The friendly man was always a talker and blabbed a bit too much about his mentor's past. He had a wife and almost a child, but the world, cruel as it was, stole that away. The woman was frail and took a great risk to carry their child to term. She died during the birth, and her gamble ultimately failed as the infant was stillborn. For as much as Edelgard suffered, one of the only horrors she can't truly imagine is losing a child, especially after a risk like that. That night 2 years ago, she fully understood why Gerald cared little for superficial things. He had already gained one of the only things in the world that truly matters, only to lose it in a cruel twist of fate. And there was no empire to blame for it. Nor criminals to punish. No closure. Just a grim return to a life of mercenary work. Claude whistles, breaking her from her thoughts. "Wow, a newbie, and you've already been a part of the Blade Breakers. You're certainly one of a kind, Torchy. Edelgard ignores his comment, instead asking in her cold, synthesized voice, what were those things, Claude? They turned into humans when we killed them. Just what in the hell was Gloucester doing? I'm not sure, Claude shrugs, it was too late to save them when we found them. There was a sinister-looking man in the lab. He injected them with something that turned them into monsters. Demonic beasts, Geralt explains. You know what they are? Claude asks. Yeah. It's a bit of a long story, but it basically has to do with some form of blood experiments. He scratches the back of his head. Lysithea walks up and interjects, demonic beasts are a certain type of genetic experiment gone wrong. I've seen something similar happen to people I knew. Edelgard stares at the girl. She's clearly been through a similar hell as the Flame Emperor. If she says these demonic beasts are another kind of victim of the Empire's wretched experiments, then that's all the more reason to stop the monsters who destroyed her life. Leave it to the Empire to figure out how to weaponize their failures. Edelgard focuses back on Claude. You said you saw someone in the lab? Did you glean any information about who he was? Yeah, he was tall, dark, and not so handsome. But clearly a high-ranking member of the Empire. Gloucester's son was on a call with him, and he called the man Hubert. Hubert. It couldn't possibly be the same boy whose family worked for her father, could he? She remembers that her best friend's father was one of the politicians responsible for her own father's downfall. But the boy was disgusted by what his father had done and swore off his family name. There's no way he would continue his father's line of work. Is there? Edelgard shakes her head. She knows too damn well that the Empire has countless methods of breaking people. Then reforging the ones that survive as puppets. She and this Lysithea girl are likely some of the only people to have wrested free of their influence. Then again, if they survived, could there be others? Her train of thought is yet again interrupted, this time by Casper's shouting. He and Eloise run up to Lysithea with enormous grins on their faces. That was so cool. Casper beams. What was that energy stuff? She looks away, that's hard to explain. Does it come from experiments? I bet it comes from experiments. Casper squeals. Lysithea looks aghast, what? How would you possibly know that? Oh. Flame Emperor got their powers from experiments, he explains. So, you've got energy projection, and they've got super strength. It's like your heroes from the Savior 7 quadrilogy. Lysithea shoots a look to the Flame Emperor, eyes wide, and mouth agape. Edelgard almost berates Casper's outburst, but she stops when she fully absorbs his innocent enthusiasm. I love those movies. Eloise interposes. I watch them all the time with my daughter. She wants to be Amazo girl when she grows up. The two boisterous boys start quoting lines from the movies and play acting out scenes. So childish, Lysithea says to no one in particular. Edelgard quietly chuckles under her helmet as she glances at Geralt. His smile is subtle but genuine. She can't help but feel like she's seen that small, understated grin on someone else. Eloise is a good dad, the weathered mercenary observes. Edelgard silently nods in agreement as she watches her friends truly let loose for the first time in weeks. Chapter 8, The Holy and the Hellish. The woman's hand rests against the small of Edelgard's back. The Emperor's own hand, wearing an odd yet stunning ring, gently grips the woman's shoulder as their other hands intertwine. Her indigo eyes gaze down at Edelgard with an ethereal charm, her smile is slight. Edelgard takes a sense of pride in knowing that only she can take these moments with such a divine being. Petty as it may seem, it's her own personal victory over Rhea and the Church. The music is sweet and slow, appropriate for the atmosphere tonight. The woman wears a tight black dress with a plunging neckline, accentuating her curves, and Edelgard has to muster all her self-discipline to not steal inappropriate glances as they dance. For the Emperor's part, she wears her usual red uniform, though she's shed her cape and gauntlets for the night. The woman clutches her scarred hand tenderly. Her own fingers are oddly soft for one who's seen so much bloodshed. I'm glad we finally have this opportunity, the Emperor says. We never were able to have that dance back at the Academy. No, the woman says, you were too busy dancing with suitors that night. Edelgard smiles, I wasn't the only popular one back then. I never thought the other students would tear themselves away from you. I don't really remember many details of what I did that night. Other than the goddess tower, she bluntly states. Oh? How flattering, Edelgard blushes. But you truly don't remember anything else? Even dancing with Claude? No. Her frankness is so matter-of-fact the Emperor can't help but laugh. The woman stares at her curiously. What's so funny? She innocently asks. Nothing, Edelgard says, leaning up for a kiss. Nothing at all, Byleth. Casper's arm shoves the Flame Emperor awake. I asked how everything went. Dorothea's voice cuts in over their transport's intercom. No one got seriously hurt? Petra's fine. I already told you, I am being unharmed. Please do not be fretting, Petra calls from the driver's seat. Unfortunately, Edelgard adds, we lost some good mercs to an Imperial trap, but the rest of us escaped with only minimal injuries. Mercedes did her job well. Of course I did. Mercy's soft voice beams. That's the job the goddess gave me, and I'm going to do it. It's the least I can offer for all of you. Oh, you're too good for us, Mercy, Dorothea teases. Edelgard struggles not to fall back asleep as their homebound transport rides down the moonlit highway. Even though her team spent a day recuperating in Claude's camp, she's still exhausted. The road lightly rumbles the vehicle while Dorothea makes small talk with the team, shamelessly flirting with Petra in the process. Monica eventually cuts in, asking Edelgard many sorts of questions regarding her injuries, claiming that she should, vainly, attempt to threaten Claude for putting Edelgard in danger, and insisting that they have tea upon her return. At some point, Dorothea forces Bernadetta into the conversation, teasing the girl for missing the party despite how much she helped out. Bernie has no interest in the affairs of loud, bumbling mercs. The purple-haired girl finally shouts over the intercom. Bernie is quite content to stay here. Edelgard's mind drowns out the ruckus. She thinks back to Claude telling her that he wasn't going to release his info on Gloucester right away. Maybe he's saving it for blackmail. Or maybe he has something more radical in mind. Either way, he simply winked at her and said, I'll use it when the time is right. She shakes her head. That man is a mystery, and she can't tell if he's going to make her mission easier or much, much harder. Of course, that's not the only mystery to unravel. She still needs to record all of Flesh's notes on Claude's weapon, then take them to Yuri. A sudden loud screech of another vehicle's tires startles everyone in the transport. Petra quickly yells that they need to brace. Then, their vehicle jostles violently at a sudden impact. They spin in the road as everyone clutches to their seats. As soon as the vehicle settles, the Flame Emperor launches from her seat in anger and shoves open the metal door on the back of their transport. She stomps out into the highway as her team of little more than a dozen follows behind her. Dorothea and Monica yell for answers as Petra tells them that they'll talk later before cutting out the transmission. The Flame Emperor sees the offending truck, perpendicular to their transport. Its grille is completely caved in as mercs stumble out of it. Two more trucks pull up, dropping off reinforcements. A crude, skinny man adorned with shoddy cybernetics screams out, "You think you can fuck with the death gods, huh? You think you can fuck with us, and we won't fuck back? There ain't gonna be shit left of ya when our boss gets here." One of his subordinates grabs his arms and murmurs something like a warning. Edelgard thinks she makes out the words boss and prey. The vulgar man responds, "I don't give a rat's ass. I call dibs for what they did. The boss can fuck their corpses or whatever it is he does." "Goddess, these clowns again," Casper groans. "Well, I guess we better take care of this and head home." "Wait," the Emperor shakes her head. "Take their leader alive, kill the rest. If this gang wants to harass us, then we send them a message, we have bigger problems to deal with than them. They're nothing more than an inconvenience." The vulgar man laughs at the threat before charging Edelgard. She doesn't bother moving as he swings to strike. Her armored hand suddenly reaches out mid-attack, grabbing him by the throat and holding him off the ground. He swears and spits in her grasp, making meaningless threats. She just headbutts him. Her helmet makes a rather satisfying clang against the cybernetics attached to his forehead. His men watch in shock as she calmly carries his unconscious body to the transport, and she casually drops him by the tires. Eliminate the others, she commands her team. Mercedes waits in the transport as the rest of her friends launch themselves at the Death God gang. Less than 2 minutes passes in total. Petra slices through limbs and necks. Casper folds bodies with his hammer. Flesh cuts throats with her knife and takes one of the mercs' pistols, firing upon the others with the transport as cover. Edelgard walks through their fire, dismembering various mercs with her axe. Two attempt to use a truck as cover while they fumble for a grenade. Edelgard grabs the underside of the truck and, with a mighty cry, heaves it up. The vehicle rolls onto the two mercs, blood leaks out from under the wreck, dyeing the pavement. The rest of Edelgard's mercs clean up the remaining enemies as a couple survivors flee on foot down the highway. What a waste of time, the Flame Emperor grumbles. A scream pulls the attention of her entire team back towards the transport. A colossal figure measuring 7 feet tall stands by their vehicle. In his left hand, he clutches Mercedes by her collar. In his right, he holds the severed head of the vulgar man by his crude implants. The figure tosses the head on the pavement, rolling it towards the Flame Emperor. She glances down, then back up to study the monster. His armor is pitch black with spikes jutting out of the shoulder pads. Based on the design, she can tell it bears artificial muscles much like her own. However, they seem to be an updated, sleeker model. His helmet appears to be modeled after a ram skull but with human teeth. The eyes are sunken with uncanny red dots centered inside them. A torn cape trails behind him. "They were supposed to wait," calls the deepest artificial voice Edelgard has ever heard. "The final kill is my right." She threatens, "If you hurt that woman, I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth. No fancy armor will stop me from grinding your bones to dust." Your spirit is strong," the figure moans. "You may be worthy to kill in a proper fight." Surprisingly, he drops Mercedes. The doctor scrambles to her feet and sprints behind her friends for cover. "I do not wish to harm this woman," he continues. "She was merely in the way. You are my prey." The Flame Emperor retorts, "If you expect me to waste my time with some warped version of an honorable fight, then you have another thing coming." She motions for her mercs to surround the figure. In response, he draws a weapon of some kind. It unfolds into an ungodly form. Something Edelgard can only describe as a vibro scythe. Its long, curved blade heats to an unnerving orange along its underside. All at once, she orders. Her team charges, but the figure's movements are so fast that even she has trouble tracking him. Almost immediately, he beheads 2 of her mercs. Petra succeeds in dodging his strikes, countering at the same speed as him. Unfortunately, his parries send the sword out of her hand. She dodges a killing blow and dashes to retrieve her weapon. While the figure is focused on her, Casper charges him from behind with his hammer. The monster catches the strike with his hand, grunting as the blow pushes him back several inches. Casper just barely ducks under the swing of his scythe only to catch a heavily armored leg to the arm. With a crack, Edelgard can hear his shoulder dislocate as he tumbles across the pavement. She and Petra both rush the figure at the same time. She swings her axe with a single hand. The figure parries with his scythe just as she grabs onto the back end of his weapon with her free hand. Both of their weapons slip out of their grips just as Petra swipes her blade at him. His reflexes are inhuman as he sidesteps out of the way at the last second. The point of her blade scrapes against the surface of his armor, then he brings a knee up to her stomach. The Flame Emperor launches into him, ramming him into the side of the transport. She brings a fist up to his head, which he catches. He then attempts to knee her, too, but she shifts her weight too quickly and throws him into the pavement, which cracks. She tries to stomp on his face just as he kicks her other leg out, bringing her on top of him. He catches her weight and throws her into the side of the transport, jumping to his feet in the process. Bullets ping off the back of his armor as Flesh opens fire from a distance. Several of Edelgard's remaining mercs and Mercedes huddle around Flesh as he turns his attention towards them. He walks towards them, ignoring the gunfire as he picks his scythe back up. "You aren't strong enough," he growls. "None of you are strong enough." Edelgard steadies herself off the ground and notes how disappointed he sounds at their struggle. This monster is clearly disturbed. This week just keeps getting better. She reclaims her axe and sneaks up behind him. She puts all her might into a downward strike. He notices at the last second and jumps forward. Just as he finds his footing, Casper's hammer swings into his side. The figure reels back for a second before quickly recovering. Edelgard glances over to Casper as he holds his hammer with one hand, looking serious for once in his life. The figure slowly approaches the both of them as Petra's vibro sword slashes against his back. He moans. Not screams. Not gasps. Not swears. Moans. Still, his response is almost immediate. He turns to strike at Petra. Edelgard uses the opportunity to bound towards him, swinging her axe yet again. Her haft catches on his as he quickly guards. Your strength is disappointing, but it has potential. You have yet to ripen, he calmly states. She shudders. As she has him engaged, Petra and Casper charge at his sides with their weapons in tow. He kicks against the ground, sending himself several feet back. With the newfound distance between them, the three mercenaries convalesce and stare down the monster before them. Rather than continue to fight, he simply relaxes his posture. His haunting voice taunts, "You show promise. You must live and grow stronger. Only then will our next confrontation have true purpose. I will not waste you by killing you now." The figure backs away, climbing over the side of the highway and jumping into the night. Casper foolishly attempts to give chase, but Edelgard stops him. "Hey," he cries. "That bastard's getting away." "Enough," she asserts. "We clearly do not possess the resources to deal with him right now. He was only toying with us. How the hell can he possibly be that strong?" Casper says, his voice cracking. "We can answer that later," Petra replies. "Right now, we need to be leaving before the Empire arrives. We can't just leave our friends' bodies," Casper yells. The Flame Emperor shakes her head, "We don't have time. We need to go." "Okay, what the hell was that?" Flesh is the first to break the awkward silence. Their dented vehicle clatters on the road home. Casper yelps as Mercedes pops his shoulder back in place. Petra says nothing as she drives, jaw clenched. "He must be genetically modified," Edelgard coldly responds. Flesh clutches her chest. "Okay, but what was that armor? It moved faster than yours. Was it custom?" It's pointless trying to answer questions right now. We'll see what Yuri knows. He's the Death Knight, Mercedes cuts in. The group simultaneously turns their gazes towards her, so she continues, "Some of the mercenaries and enforcers who stop by my day clinic speak about him. At first, I thought he was made up. But some of the ones who came in were injured in unnatural ways, like they'd been in a fight with a monster. I've seen enough bizarre things in my time to know that it had to be him. And the way those survivors described the Death Knight, how he fights. The mutilated bodies of their comrades. It's terrible." She turns towards Edelgard, "Please, be careful. Don't fight him if you don't have to. I have a really bad feeling about him." The Flame Emperor sighs, "Obviously, I'll avoid engaging him if it's unnecessary. But none of us know what fights we'll be forced to face. If I do combat him again, I promise I'll win. For the sake of my ambitions, I have to." "You had better be right," Mercedes says as she folds her hands in front of her chest. Is she praying? Edelgard wonders. Neither woman can shake the wretched pits in their stomachs. Chapter 9, Reeling. What the hell was any of this for? The Flame Emperor lost several good mercs in just the last 2 days for a purpose that's admittedly rather unclear. She slams her helmet down on her desk, causing Bernadetta, seated at her console several feet away, to squeak. "Sorry, Bernie," Edelgard apologizes. You wanna talk about it?" Bernadetta is a sweet girl. Jumps at the slightest provocation, no doubt because of her father. Gregoire Varley is a mayor notorious in Adrestian territory for his flighty nature and cruelty. He's the sort of man who vents his wrath on those even weaker than him to compensate for his own sense of fragility. The only thing comparable to his abusive nature is his cowardice. It's honestly pathetic. Ironically, even other Empire officials and corpus, including Governor Aguirre of all people, complain about his fearfulness, according to Bernadetta. Every time Edelgard accidentally makes Bernadetta jump, her heart sinks as she can imagine what the girl's been through. The Emperor starts, it's just all the fighting the last couple of days has seemed rather meaningless. We risk our necks to help Claude, and he won't even let us in on his plans for Gloucester. That's information that we helped him acquire. We see him with a completed version of one of those experimental weapons, and he won't divulge anything about that either. Then we get jumped by that audacious Death Knight who humiliated us. So many of our people died. It leaves me wondering, did I get them killed for no reason? Before Bernadetta can give her an answer, Monica rushes in through the door. Miss Eisner. Are you okay? I told you, I'm fine, Edelgard sighs. With all due respect, ma'am, you don't seem fine, Monica shakes her head. You stormed off the moment you returned. Dorothea is in a state over everyone. Even Mercedes won't talk much. I appreciate your concern, Monica. But I simply need some time to process, Edelgard says. But, ma'am, you could be hurt and... Monica. I don't need you to baby me, her shout startles the redhead. My apologies, Edelgard continues. I'm simply exhausted. Nothing more. If you wish to help me, go check on Mercedes. All right. Of course, Miss Eisner, she bows, leaving with hunched shoulders. Bernadetta has gone back to typing away on her computers. Edelgard doesn't know if she's actually busy or just pretending to work to avoid the tension. She pinches the bridge of her nose and sighs. Then she turns to her helmet on her desk. She stares at it for a few seconds, and then she squints at the helmet. She stands, grabbing the armor piece, then walks towards the door. Where are you going? Bernadetta stammers. I have an idea. The Flame Emperor marches towards Linhard's station. The green-haired personification of lethargy swivels his chair in her direction, popsicle in his mouth. He removes the sweet treat and raises an eyebrow. Oh joy, he laments. What do I have to do now? She hands him her helmet. Pull the feed from the optics, she commands. I want you to study the footage of our fight with the Death Knight. I'm not exactly a martial expert. It's not like I'll be able to identify his attack patterns. She shakes her head. I don't want you to dissect how he fights. I want you to analyze his armor. The set he was wearing outpaces mine. So, you want me to find its weaknesses? That, she smirks, and I want you to design a new suit for me based on his enhanced design. Linhard scratches his chin. That actually sounds ever so slightly exciting. Still, building a new piece like that is going to take a while. Reverse engineering armor based on shaky cam, slowly sneaking resources under my father's nose, actually building the darn thing, etc. It's going to be a whole process. Who's to say when I'll be done? I don't need it overnight, but I'll need it as fast as you can reasonably have it ready. I need to react faster on the battlefield if I'm to fight demonic beasts, giant automatons, and souped-up sociopaths. All right, but only if you say please, Linhard shrugs. She puts a hand on his shoulder and smiles, please. And thank you. Monica mindlessly organizes Mercedes' new medical notes into files while the doctor writes up more. What am I doing wrong, Merci? The redhead asks. I don't follow. You seem to be doing just fine. I mean with Miss Eisner. Oh, the doctor furrows her brow. I make her favorite tea. I hang out with her all the time. I volunteer for all the gritty tasks no one else wants to do for her. I bake those little cakes she loves so much. I send her dietary notes tailored to her exact physical needs. Yet she still acts like I'm just a co-worker. Monica rests her cheek on her fist. Don't worry, Monica. You're not just her co-worker. You're her friend, just like everyone else here. I promise you that, Mercedes smiles. That's really kind of you to say, but I think you know what I mean. The girl shoots up, hey. You're basically her big sister. Do you have any advice? What does she find attractive? Mercedes frowns, that's a tricky question. She doesn't really talk about romance much. I honestly have no idea what she likes. I imagine she's fond of kindness, determination, and a quick wit, but those are rather generic traits. Oh come on, she hasn't told you anything? Whatever you tell me will go a long way. Monica grins. Well, Mercedes caves, I suppose a little gossip couldn't hurt. Just be warned, it still isn't much. All right. Thank you, merci, I'll take it. Monica cheers. To start with, and don't tell her I told you this, Edelgard's been having recurring dreams of some sort of fantasy world. You know, with knights and castles? She mentioned romance in those dreams. Romance. Monica perks up. With whom? Mercedes folds her hands, I'm not sure. She hasn't said much on that front. In fact, she's been a little deflective. I think it embarrasses her. All I know is that it's with the same woman who keeps appearing to her. Monica snickers, so, it's with a woman she sees on a regular basis? And she's too embarrassed to say anything. Miss Eisner can be so cute. The doctor starts, well, I don't know if it's with someone she sees in real life on a regular. Oh, thank you, merci. You're the best. Monica hugs the woman. Okay. You're welcome. Just make sure you keep realistic expectations. Yuri rubs his forehead, it seems Regan likes to play it close to the chest. Maybe even more than me. You've really got nothing else for me. Other than those notes one of my people took, no, the Flame Emperor crosses her legs. That's unfortunate, the man sighs. And my people haven't really been able to figure anything else out about the piece we have. It may as well work off magic. Maybe your friend's data will give us a bit more, but it's doubtful. I'm pretty sure it glows orange and has a strange red stone isn't really going to help our cause. At least not without finding other pieces. He pours 2 glasses of brandy from his personal bar and hands one to Edelgard, who sits in her usual masked red-haired guise. The Emperor politely sips at her drink while Yuri continues. I have eyes trying to narrow down some locations in which the Empire might be working on these weapons. It's slow going, so you'll have to be patient. I might have something that can help. She takes a large swig of the brandy. Don't make me regret sharing it with you. Oh, I promise it'll be worth your while, Yuri beams. She sets her glass down on a coaster on his table. Our team procured some data from one of the Empire's more out-of-the-way locations. It's a list of various Imperial sites. Too many to casually scout out all of them. If I have the data copied and sent to you, would you be able to cross-reference it with your own sources and narrow down possible locations? He laughs, you were sitting on that info and didn't tell me? I don't know whether to be hurt or proud. Can you help or not? I'm sure I can come up with something, Yuri smirks. It'll be a few days, though. In the meantime, you and that pretty little team of yours should take a break. It sounds like you've been through the ringer, and I can't imagine any of the Empire's labs being poorly defended if they're housing a completed bone weapon. Thank you. And have you heard anything about the term Nabatean? She hunches forward. No. But we might be close. We're starting to zero in on some potential sources. It's not particularly promising, but it's a start, he says. And there are a couple old texts that we found right here on Abyss soil. They're in bad shape, and scanning the pages will be a slow, careful process. We honestly have no idea what we're going to find. That's it, she shakes her head. Well, there is one other source. However, it's a real long shot. They may not be willing to cooperate. He takes a drink. And trying to convince a live body could be risky. They might sell out my people to the Empire if we push too hard. Who is it? Some egghead professor down at the University of Adrestian Heritage. Yuri rubs his temple. UAH, her old alma mater. The most exclusive college in Adrestia. Maybe all of Fodlan. One has to be the best and brightest to get in. All of the professors there are nigh unparalleled experts in their respective fields. And she can imagine which of her old professors, if any, would have an inkling of Fodlan's true history, Hanneman Essa. I think I might know which professor you want, Edelgard speaks up. Oh really? That'd be quite the coincidence, he teases. It's a long story, but I think I can help. Let me be the one to deal with them, she pleads. Very well, he sighs, but only because I can sense that you're giving me cute puppy dog eyes under that ostentatious hollow mask of yours. Do remember to share what you find with the class, dear. Wouldn't want to spoil our relationship. Thank you, Yuri. I will do everything in my power to ensure that this goes well. I swear it. No trouble, he smiles. But a word to the wise, wait till after we pick a base to hit, then interrogate our source. In the event they sell us out, we don't want to be dealing with the enforcer dogs at the same time we're trying to find one of their weapons. Fine. I can wait. Chapter 10, Meetup. Dorothea's two-story penthouse certainly matched the lifestyle of a celebrity. The window overlooking the capital city may as well be a giant glass wall. It's a beautiful view of Inver at night, Edelgard thinks. The lights from all the buildings make the city look like a painting. It's too bad the site is soiled by Nemesis Garish Fortress. She looks out to the megastructure backdropping the skyline, grimacing. Dorothea's voice chirps, believe it or not, merci, this is actually a pretty meager apartment compared to some other celebrities. You can afford a lot of meaningless room if you're a complete sellout to Corpus. Oh my, Mercedes shakes her head, I certainly wouldn't know about that. My day clinic doesn't pay nearly as well as this. Nevertheless, you have a beautiful place, Dorothea. Petra cocks her head, Mercedes has never been to your home before. Nope, the doctor chimes. This is my first time visiting. Dorothea winks at Petra, she doesn't pull herself from her work often enough to do this sort of thing. Kind of like someone else we know, right Edie? Dorothea, Petra, Mercedes, and Monica all glance in Edelgard's direction. Seeing her friend glare at Inver Palace, Dorothea rolls her eyes and loudly clears her throat. I'm sorry, what was that? Edelgard turns to her friend. My point exactly, Dorothea sighs. Oh, please don't be mad at Miss Eisner. She's just distracted because she's focused on the well-being of everyone, Monica says as she tentatively sits on Dorothea's expensive-looking couch. The redhead continues, this really is a nice place, Miss Arnault. Even though my father holds a position in Adrestia's government, he isn't nearly high up enough to afford something like this. Thanks, the songstress shifts her weight anxiously. If it's alright with you, I'd like to talk about something else other than my income. Petra gives her a knowing look, gently touching the idol's arm. Dorothea smiles at her while Edelgard walks away from the window. Why did you call us here, again? Edelgard asks. To hang out. Dorothea shakes her head. This isn't some kind of tactical meetup. I just wanted to do something with the girls while we had a break. Oh, Edelgard's face burns red. This is why you need a life, Edie. You forgot how to have fun. If you ever knew in the first place. Edelgard opens her mouth to respond, but Monica reacts first. Miss Eisner is plenty capable of fun. She's just been busy organizing our missions for the sake of everyone in the world. Right. Of course, money. I didn't mean to insult your lady's honor, Dorothea winks at Monica. Monica, Edelgard begins, I appreciate your concern, but I don't need you to defend me. Now, that's enough of that, Mercedes interrupts. She sits by Monica, putting a hand on her shoulder. We all have our own ways of doing things, so let's just do our best to get along. So, Petra, Monica changes the subject, you've been to Dorothea's apartment before? Yes, the princess chimes, I have been staying over many nights. It's a very wonderful place. Monica and Mercedes both turn beet red as Edelgard sighs. Have I been saying something wrong? Petra asks innocently. Dorothea laughs, you haven't said anything wrong. Our friends are just a tad on the prudish side, is all. Anyway, Monica stammers, what exactly are we going to do tonight? A night on the town, the songstress cheers. I only brought you back here so we can freshen up. I have plenty of outfits in case anyone wants to borrow one. Mercedes furrows her brow, isn't it a bit late for that? Dorothea waves her hand, oh please, this is an actual opportunity to have a night of unabashed fun all to ourselves, and I'm not wasting it. I know a fantastic club with all the best drinks. And plenty of guys willing to pay for them. Mercedes tries to stop her, I'm not sure I Dorothea continues without missing a beat, and maybe we can even manage to get one or two of you laid. She gives a knowing wink to Monica. Monica quickly glances at Edelgard, blushing with sweat slightly beading on her brow. Edelgard folds her arms. While I'm happy to spend some time with you all, don't expect me to end up in a stranger's bed. Who said anything about a stranger? Dorothea coyly places her finger on her chin. While I concede that you are all very attractive and I certainly appreciate everyone's company, no, Edelgard bluntly states. Spoil sport, the songstress pouts, giving a remorseful look to Monica as if to say I tried. My, this place certainly is loud, Mercedes yells over the music. That's half the fun. Dorothea retorts. Edelgard just shakes her head. She wears a tight black turtleneck dress with a short skirt, red leggings, and white gloves. Predictable, she knows, but she's not showing off her scars to a club full of drunk rabble. Her hair is tied off to the side in a long ponytail. She's afraid it makes her look a bit childish, yet she finds the look oddly appealing. Mercedes wears a beige sundress with black pumps at the behest of Dorothea. The outfit shows off the doctor's curves a bit more than she would like. Still, it seems as though she's having fun, in spite of herself. Dorothea opts for the business casual look with a maroon blazer and skirt alongside see-through stockings. Her white button-up shirt is only 2/3 fastened, drawing the eyes of many onlookers. Petra fends off some suitors crowding her and Dorothea in a two-piece orange dress with a midriff cut out. She's undone her braids, letting her hair cascade freely into a sea of fuchsia. Monica wears a cherry red strapless dress with matching heels. She's definitely the easiest to spot in the crowd. Can I get you anything to drink, Miss Eisner? The redhead asks. Dorothea grins. It seems like it's not just the guys who want to get you free drinks. Edelgard shakes her head. Not right now, Monica, thank you. And please, just call me Edelgard. I think we've come far enough along for that. Monica flushes and smiles wide. Oh, thank you, Miss Eisner, she faintly bows. It's a real honor that you want to be on a first-name basis with me, but I'm still only your assistant. With everything you're striving towards, I'm simply not on the same level. No one is. Edelgard pauses, unsure of how to respond. Her mouth gapes open with nothing coming out as Monica looks at her eagerly. Mercedes gently takes the redhead's arm in her own. Come on, Monica. Let's give Edelgard a chance to adjust to the crowd. In the meantime, let's go dancing. Monica looks a little reluctantly at Edelgard, who just smiles and nods. Go ahead, for my sake. Her assistant relents, letting Mercedes take her out to the floor. Edelgard chuckles as they both dance poorly to the music. Come on, Dorothea pinches her elbow, we're getting drinks. Maybe it'll help you lose the stick lodged firmly up your derriere. The remaining 3 women sit at the bar. A lot of colorful lights draw attention to the wide range of bottles lining the back wall. The bartender seems to be in good spirits, though he's a large, frightening man. Edelgard has no doubt that he's plenty capable of handling troublemakers. Dorothea calls his attention and sounds off the names of several drinks Edelgard doesn't recognize. She's pretty sure Dorothea is just making up combinations of words, and the bartender is going to give them random alcohol. When Edelgard receives her beverage, she stares into its intense red color. What is this, some kind of strawberry martini, she shouts. The perfect storm, Dorothea explains. Rum, strawberry, cranberry, lime. Try it. Edelgard attempts to ask a follow-up question, but she gives up when she sees the songstress sharing drinks with Petra. She scowls slightly, then sips at the cocktail. Not bad. Dorothea knows what she's doing, at least. A woman and man interrupt the trio's drinks. It's obvious they're a couple who've recognized Dorothea. They ask for a picture, to which the idol readily acquiesces. She even lets them take a second group photo with Petra around her arm. Edelgard takes a larger swig of her drink. Ah, here you are. Are you waiting for someone? I'm not waiting for anyone. Good. I would not wish to interrupt anything. The room is dark. Moonlight shines through the open balcony. A classical melody faintly swells far away, from below them somewhere. The woman before her feels like a reprieve from a busy night, though the conversation with her hazes in and out of focus. You have supposedly always been a mercenary, but I believe there is more to your story than that. Let's leave it there for today and return to the ball. There must be plenty of students hoping to talk with you, and to dance with you. I would not wish to prevent you from mingling. I cannot keep you all to myself, after all. Dorothea's violently vibrating phone snaps her out of her vision. The songstress grabs her phone from her purse, and with a quick, "Be back in a second," she heads towards the restrooms. Was that the Goddess Tower? She wonders. The location felt familiar. Somehow, she knows it's the same place the mystery woman referred to in her previous dream. What was that woman's name again? Byleth? Who the hell is she? Why do I keep seeing her? Are you doing okay? Petra's hand touches her shoulder, causing her to jump. Yes, I'm fine. Just zoned out. For some reason, she feels quite lonely now. Zoned out. Petra shakes her head. Ah, you mean you were staring up into space. Are you certain you are having fun? You seem to be easily distracted and startle very quickly. It is not often that you are the one acting like prey. Edelgard sighs. It's a long story. Not one I can tell here. I'll be fine once I have another couple drinks. Petra gives her a firm hug, much to Edelgard's surprise. Do not be worrying. I am your friend, and I will be here for you. Edelgard blushes at the sudden, and very public, show of affection. Before she can respond, Dorothea returns from the bathroom beaming. Hey. Guess who I was just on the phone with? She smirks. How could we possibly guess? Edelgard folds her arms. All right, fine. Take all the fun out of it. Dorothea sticks out her tongue. Ingrid and her husband are coming to visit. What? Edelgard perks up. Yup. Apparently, they're in town because some enforcer ranks are shuffling around. I guess her husband is an officer? Something about reorganizing imperial defenses. I can't possibly imagine who'd be responsible for freaking out the Empire. Dorothea, Edelgard chides. Anyway, she's coming to town, and they want to get together with us. Mercedes, too. Apparently, she tried calling you both first but neither of you answered. Edelgard opens her purse and checks her phone. 2 missed calls from Ingrid. She then looks over to the dance floor. Mercedes is clearly too distracted being a goofball with Monica to have noticed her phone ringing. When does she want to meet? She asks the songstress. On the 7th. Oh, I'm so excited. We actually get to meet that mystery man she was apparently engaged to the whole time I knew her. Then she furrows her brow. Goddess, if it was an arranged marriage, I hope he doesn't turn out to be a prick. Edelgard shakes her head. She didn't seem to hate him when she talked about him back in college. That's good. Dorothea cheers. I have to go tell Mercedes. Edelgard's heels fall to her bedroom floor with a loud clap. She looks out her window to the cloudy night sky. 1:34 a.m. reads the clock on Gerard the robo-butler. She falls into her bed back first. It was a fun night, but she clocked out 2 hours ago. It didn't help that she had a hard time focusing on their activities and kept dissociating. Is this how Bernie feels every time someone talks to her? She closes her eyes briefly, then opens them to find sunlight pouring into her room. Shit. What time is it? She asks aloud. No response. Gerard recharges in a station plugged into the corner of her room. She rolls over to check her phone. 12:16 p.m. There goes half my day. And I have a message from Yuri. Fantastic. Meet me when you have the chance. Found a good place for your picnic. Wanna talk? Check the description for the links to the author.